Sujita, you have some questions? So we'll start the session in another 5 minutes. If anyone wants to share their thoughts or something, you could unmute yourself and then.
I can start. Um, I think I spoke yesterday also, but the experience was like it's amazing. Thank you so much for organizing this, Meena, and I know so many hands behind this, so it's amazing. And to begin with, when Meena and Julie and all pinged me for this AI workshop, I was just going to be observers, and that's the first thing. And then parallelly, my organization, they were talking about AI and being an agile coach. I don't know how much I can get my hands into this AI. I just came to understand the concept so that I can go back and talk to the leadership, and that's my first intention to come. And after Jyoti was talking deep dive into that, it's amazing journey for me. Like it's kind of like my career shift or something which I can get my hands into it. It's totally amazing. Thank you so much for this. Like I can't even imagine that I'm gonna shift myself from agile career, because I have been doing agile for 10 years, right? So now like I'm thinking of like how do I at least equip AI. So far I haven't been adding agile, right? Scrum, then I add Kanban, then I add Safe, like everything into the agile. Like for the first time I'm thinking something out of the box, like out of agile. It's totally amazing. And in fact I'm excited to add this to my skill or in the career thing. So it's totally amazing. Probably like I will definitely go in that direction and add on top of my agile background. It's totally amazing. Thank you so much.
That's nice to hear. Yes, it is really exciting to hear someone from another field that now you are totally loving this just after attending the workshop. So we're so happy about that. Thank you, Suganti.
One more thing to add. Sorry for talking too much. Like Jyoti was talking and saying, right? It's not that just he's telling and saying things. He's a doer. I could see, because like he said, "Oh, connect with me. I will answer." Like I connected with him, and immediately he responded. Like I was amazed. Like with all these things going on, how could he even do that? Like he's a doer. Definitely, he's a go-to person and doer. That
Yes,
adds value, right? If that
yes.
person is not responding or something like saying that, my excitement will stop, right? He's pulling our excitement and he's dragging, so that adds more value to my excitement. Yeah, as soon as he responded yesterday, I was like, oh my god. So I was talking about you, Jyoti. We are talking behind your back.
Thank thank
Yeah.
you.
So actually, he is very interactive. That
Yes,
for
yes,
sure.
yes.
I mean, that I could really say that because kid session, even small kids who he was very patient enough to ask. I mean, listen to all their questions and answer, and
Ah,
he's very interactive. So when it is when the kids are so much involved, I am sure adults it is like a piece of cake for him.
yeah.
So yeah. High schoolers is very
I,
terrible stage to handle, right? So he handled them 2 days online, so that shows his dedication.
Thank you.
Now I'm wondering like what would have been if I have attended the kids session. Maybe I would have learned more, like, because for me, like, I don't have much of the technical hands-on experience, right? So I was thinking like, but yeah, anyway, so it's amazing. It doesn't matter. It's amazing. Thank you again, Jyoti. Thank
Thank
you
you,
again.
ma'am. Thank you.
So, yeah, we can start the session.
Sure.
You're ready.
Well,
Thank
that
you.
thank you means I'm going to bother you a lot.
Please, no
I'm
worries,
s-
no worries. That's fine. All right, so let's start now. Okay, I'm going to share my screen now. So can you all see my screen?
yes.
Okay. All right. So where we left yesterday, I'm just going back and make sure. So what we discussed as a session. So we were talking about software engineering, like what we talked about. How does traditional software engineering exist right now? What kind of functions, what kind of role we do, and we took that and tried to map this in the world of artificial intelligence, how that looks. Then we took an example. For an example, in a traditional software world, how do we write a simple query to get data? And how do we write in AI world? We don't write the query, we use statistical modeling. In this case, I use k-means clustering, so which does the same thing, it forms a cluster. Then in both the cases, we have a data. So why do we want to go in this path of AI-based software engineering? So number one, no hard-coded business rules. Number two, self-learning technique. Number three, adapting changes. Okay, so we don't have to hard code or change any program when there's a change occur. So this hard-coded change occurring, adapting changes are happens only in the traditional software world. In an AI world, it happens by itself. All right. So what is the real impact in terms of impact? So we talked about defining new policies, new skills, new operating model, new technologies, etc. Okay. So these are some of the impact changes are on our way. When we say new policy, the government has to define a policy. So like if a self-driving car is driving by itself, if the car met an accident, who's liable? I'm just sitting in a car, should I have to take a license? Okay, all these questions are not answered. We don't have a clear-cut definitions. So how do we define such policies? It starts from there. Then learning new skills, a new operating model. So when I say new operating model, so in a global operations, you may not have to have too many people because most of the tasks are going to be automated. If it's fully automated, then how do we manage this overall process? Okay, some examples. It could be centralized operation with less human, more machine, and new technologies we talked about, and like things on Kubernetes, Kubeflow, etc. These kind of technologies you could use. So these are the changes coming on our way. So this is what we talked about. There's a lot of things I can cover in this space, but I really wanted to take you to one of the key topic so that you can truly understand what are the different machine learnings you can get started. Okay. So yesterday we talked about there are technique we can use to teach the machine. So the technique that what we can use to teach the machine, it starts from robotic process automation, computer vision, natural language processing, then deep learning, then supervised, unsupervised reinforcement learning. So keep in mind, in all these five are different machine learning technique. Okay, all these five are different machine learning technique. So now let's understand what is supervised machine learning, what is unsupervised machine learning, what is reinforcement learning, and how these are all different. And let's see if there is any one use case that we could implement so that you can understand end-to-end how it works. Okay, so what I'm referring yesterday, what we talked about, so different machine learning technique, right? If look at one of the slides that we used yesterday, so different machine learning technique, that's the slide I'm talking about. Okay, so this is, okay, one second, I think I missed it. This is the slide I'm talking about, okay? So what we talked, so how do you create intelligence artificially? Teach the machine. How to teach the machine? Train the machine. How to train the machine? These are the different techniques. Okay. So what are the different techniques? Robotic process automation, where the machine learns about our business processes. Natural language processing, where the machine learns about business languages, both spoken and written. Computer vision, where the machine learns about image, videos, and the objects. And deep learning, when you have complex problem to be solved, when you don't have a hypothesis, okay, so where I don't have any specific instruction to teach the machine, or I don't have any hypothesis to inform the machine how to solve this problem, and also the underlying data structure is quite complex. In such cases, I'll be using deep learning. Let's say the data set is very light and the problem is very simple, and I have a guided approach for a machine to teach and train and test, then I'm using supervised, unsupervised machine learning. So where I'm going right now, let's take one of this and go deeper, okay, so that you could understand. So right now we are focused on trying to understand what is supervised machine learning, what is unsupervised machine learning, what is reinforcement learning. Okay? So these are all good starting point for someone like you to get started. Okay, so if you want to go more and learn and practice, sky is the limit. But I'm just laying out a foundation where you can start and learn from here. Okay, where you can start and learn from here. So that is what now our focus. Okay, now it's going to be our focus is how does machine learning apply in real world application? How does machine learning apply in a real world application? This example that I'm having, time series data analysis and predictive analytics applied in planning, budgeting, forecasting. So this is a real use case. I was involved in the implementation. We did that implementation. I'm going to walk you through. All right, the type of machine learning what we discussed, supervised, unsupervised, reinforcement. So there is also a semi-supervised, not widely used, you could ignore. Okay, not widely used, you could ignore. So in the current state, the machine learnings are going to be either supervised, or it's going to be unsupervised, or it's going to be reinforcement learning. This is the type of machine learning that we are going to do. Keep in mind, what is this? It's a technique to teach the machine. It's a technique to teach the machine. Let's understand what is a supervised machine learning. What is a supervised machine learning? So the name itself tells the machine learns under guided supervision. That means the machine has to have a certain instruction to learn. Okay, in a deep learning, that is not the case. So there is no special instruction for the machine to follow. The machine learns by itself. The machine also uses its own way of detecting and understanding the problem. So here, that's not the case. Here, that's not the case. So under supervised machine learning, okay, under supervised machine learning, the machine learns on a guided supervised approach. Okay, the machine learns a problem solving technique based on a guided approach. All right, what does that mean to them? So under supervised machine learning, the machine has to have a goal to achieve. Okay, what is my goal to achieve? Second, the machine has to have data sets where the data sets clearly tells what is the expected outcome. So what is my expected outcome? What is my expected outcome? So it has to have an outcome predefined. This is what I'm expecting by using this data sets. Okay. So number one, the machine has to have a goal to achieve. This goal means an expected outcome. Second, in the task data, the machine has to have the expected outcome. So this is my expert. So in the training data, the machine has to have an expected outcome, so that the machine learns and understand if this happens, this is the output. If this happens, this is the output. Like that, the machine learns this one. So the output in this case, it's called labels. The output in this case, it's called labels. Okay, so basically, there are two guided principle the machine follows. One is it must have to have a goal to achieve. And second one, in the training data, the machine has to have the expected outcome. So those are the key characteristics of a supervised machine learning. A supervised machine learning solves two types of problems, a classification problem and a regression problem. So what is a classification problem? What is a regression problem? Okay, so I do need a volunteer who can answer this question. Please listen carefully. So this classification problems are a problem that's nothing but you are trying to classify something. Okay, I'm trying to classify. What am I classifying? Is it true or false? Yes, this is true. No, it's not false. Okay, so this is not true. It's false. All right. Is this male or female? That is a classification problem. Is it a cat or dog? That's a classification problem. Is this candidate is going to be pass or fail? That's a classification problem. Correct? That is a classification problem. So under supervised machine learning, the machine learns and solves these two type of problem, a classification problem and a regression problem. For example, okay, whether the customer is going to turn yes or no. That is the classification problem. Why? It's a true or false kind of answer. Yes, the customer is going to churn. No, the customer is not going to churn. Yes, the customer is going to churn. No, the customer is not going to churn. So classifications, the outcome is going to be expected in the form of true or false, yes or no, 0 or 1. It's like in a binary form. It's like in a binary form. So that is what it is. That is what it is. Yes. So Deepthi, what's your question? Deepthi?
No, 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 I don't have any question right now.
Okay, so there was a, it
Right.
says raising hands or something was there.
Oh yeah, that was by mistake. Sorry.
Okay, no problem. That's fine. All right. So the classification problem, it is nothing but a problem which has an answer for true or false, yes or no, 0 or 1, boy or girl, man or woman, and cat or dog. That's the kind of classification problem outcomes are going to be. Okay. A classification problem outcome is going to be like a true or false, yes or no, etc. The examples would be, you can have an example such as whether the student is going to pass or fail. That is a classification problem. Okay. That's going to be a classification problem. All right. So what is the probability of so achieving something? So that is not a classification problem. It could be range, right? It could be range. So a classification problems are problems that has an answer of 0 or 1, true or false, yes or no, male or female, cat or dog. So that's kind of the problem we are talking under classification. Second, a regression problem. What is a regression problem? A range of value. It is not 0 or 1. It is not true or false. It is not male or female. It's not cat or dog. It's not boy or girl. Correct? It's a range of value. What is the house price is going to be, or how much, what is the grade of this person? So the grade of the person is going to be B to C. Okay, whether this person is getting B grade or C grade. So what is the actual salary for this person? It could be 1 lakh to 2 lakhs, correct? Something like that. So the regressions are going to be range of value, not a classification like a 0 or 1, true or false. Okay. So what kind of model we can use under supervised machine learning? Some of these models are linear regression, logistic regression, decision tree, random forest, support vector machine, etc. So these are all some of the sample models that you could use. Okay. So these are all some of the sample models that you could use. So what are some of the use cases that you could implement under the supervised machine learning? Some of the use cases are predicting length of patient, length of stay of a patient, how long a patient can stay in a hospital, readmission rate. Okay, how soon the patient can be readmitted? Okay, how soon the patient can be readmitted? What is the health risk of this patient? Okay, so these are all some of the use cases falls under regression. And customer churn, whether the customer is going to churn or not. Customer spend prediction, how much the customer is going to spend on this one. Correct? Whether the customer is going to like the product or not. Correct? All these are all some of the examples of this problem that what you're talking about. Okay, let's summarize. So so what we are trying to understand, different type of machine learning. Okay, so when you teach the machine, when you train the machine learns based on certain guided approach. Okay, keep in mind the goal is to what? Teach the machine. How do we teach the machine? Use different technique. One of the technique is supervised machine learning. Under supervised machine learning, the machine expects two things. What does it expect actually? It expects, one is a goal to achieve. What is that you are trying to achieve here? So that means the machine is going to produce an outcome. The machine is going to produce an outcome. There is always an expected outcome under supervised machine learning. Under supervised machine learning, there is always an expected outcome from the machine. Okay, so don't think it's always going to be prediction. It is not only prediction, it could be anything, but there is an expected outcome. There is an expected outcome. Second, under the supervised machine learning, the training data must have to have the actual defined outcome. What is your expected outcome? The training data must have to have an expected outcome. So that is called labels. So the type of problem it solves two types of problem, a classification problem and a regression problem. What is the classification problem? A problem which is expected to produce an outcome, which is basically 0 or 1, true or false, yes or no, male or female, cat or dog, boy or girl. These are all classification problems. Example, whether the customer is going to churn, yes or no, yes. Whether the student is going to pass or fail, yes or no, yes. That's a classification problem. Whether the patient is going to live or not, no, this patient is going to live. So these are all classification problem. So you are expecting an outcome, yes or no, true or false, 0 or 1. Such problems falls under classification problem. Second, regression problem. It's not a 0 or 1. It is not a true or false, but it's a range of value. What would be the salary of this person? So this person makes about 1.5 lakhs to 10 lakhs, correct? Something like that. So that's the range of value. And how much this car would cost? This car would cost 34,000 to 50,000. That's a range of value. So regression means it's always a range of value. Regression means it's always a range of value. It is not like, classification problem. So what are the different models we can use? Logistic regression, linear regression, decision tree, random forest, support vector machine. So these are all some of the models we can use. What is some of the use cases that we can use? So if it's a regression problem, length of stay, readmission rate, discharge rate. So these are some of the use cases for regression. Classification, customer churn is going to be a classification. Okay, whether the customer liked the product or not, that's a classification. Because whether this customer is going to churn, yes or no. So that's a classification. Whether the customer is going to like this product, yes or no, that's a classification. All right. So these are all some of the key points to consider on a supervised. The most two critical important point. Under supervised machine learning, the machine must have to have a goal to achieve. Point one. Point two, under supervised machine learning, the machine basically machine learns from the training data. In the training data, you must have to define an expected outcome. You must have to define an expected outcome. All right, let's take a training data. So this is basically a sample training data for a supervised machine learning. This is basically a sample machine training data for the supervised machine learning. So what I am talking here, actually, I'm looking at a set of credit card statement. Okay, I'm trying to determine whether the credit card statement is valid, yes or no. Okay, whether the credit card statement is valid, yes or no. 1 means valid, 0 means not valid. 1 means valid, 0 means not valid. So that is the problem we are solving. So where this is going to be worked? Let's take an example. Okay, so a company like IBM, okay, company like IBM, so they have hundreds of people, thousands of people traveling across the board. Okay, they travel to different city, different place, different country. So their credit card statement has to be reconciled. Someone from the accounting team, okay, they look at all the company credit cards. Who are using the company credit card, they want to reconcile all the transactions. In that case, going each and every transaction, reconciling them, it's going to be quite extensive work. It's going to be very extensive work. So we want to build in a predictive model. We want to build in a simple model where it can run on top of this credit card statement, okay? And then tells you which statements are valid, which statements are not valid. That is the kind of application we're talking. So in this application, what I have in the top, actually, transaction ID, transaction date, transaction location, amount, card verified, signature captured, yes or no, okay? That is basically valid or not valid. So that's a label. So what we talked about, one of the rule in the characteristics, the machine is trained with the label, meaning data sets tagged with the right answers. So here I'm saying, when I have all these characteristics, then it's a valid transaction. When I don't have some of this one, then I say it's not a valid transaction. So this is basically your expected outcome. This is the expected outcome. So this is your training data. This is your training data. So when you have your training data with an expected outcome, the machine learns all the patterns, then understand if these are the data sets are there, then it is a valid. Under this condition, it is valid. Under this condition, it is not valid. Like this, the machine learns and understand. This is your training data. So one of the criteria for supervised machine learning, the training data must have to have an expected outcome. The training data must have to have an expected outcome. And also the machine has the goals to achieve. That is the expected outcome. All right, let's move on. How does the test data look? Under supervised machine learning, the test data should not have the last column, which is basically an expected outcome. And that is what the machine predicts. Okay, that is what the machine predicts. So in the training data, the last column that it don't have to be last column, it could be anywhere. It could be anywhere. Since it's easy to read from here, so that's why it kept at the end. So it could be anywhere actually. So I'm just saying, under this training data, what we noticed actually, one of the field represents the expected outcome. One of the field represents the expected outcome. The expected outcome in this case, if these conditions are met, then it's a valid transaction. If this condition doesn't meet, then it's not a valid transaction. Like this, the machine learns all the possible patterns. That is what the training data does. In the test data, what we see, so we give everything, but we don't give the expected outcome. That is what we expect the machine to predict. Okay, that is what we expected the machine to predict. In the test data, you see these are all transactions starts with 10001, and here it starts with 20000, and it doesn't have the last column. So that is what we expect machine to predict. So basically, I'm teaching my kids 2 plus 2, 4, 4 plus 4, 8, 8 plus 8, 16. That is what this is. Okay, let's assume this is 2 plus 2, 4. 4 plus 4, 8. Like this, I'm teaching my kids. They understand what this is. So now I'm trying to test my kids. What is 3 plus 3? They have to write the last column. Oh, 3 plus 3, 6. What is 6 plus 6? 12. They have to write this last column. So this is my test data for my kids to test how well they learned on the training. Okay, how well learned on the training. So here I'm expecting my kids to write the last column, which is the expected outcome, which is the expected outcome. So point to consider, in the training data, you have the desired outcome that what you're expecting as one of the column. In the test data, you don't have the desired outcome, and that is what we expect the machine to predict. So this is basically the key to consider. Some of the use cases of what we have talked about. Length of stay, how long a patient can stay in the hospital. So that is a regression problem. It's a range of value. The patient can stay in the hospital 4 days to 5 days. Okay, 4 days to 5 days. That is one of the example. A readmission rate, how soon the patient can readmit the hospital. The patient can readmit within next 2 to 3 weeks. All right, that's a range of value. That's a regression problem. Discharge rate, how much of the population is going to discharge? Okay, maybe 5 to 10% of the population can discharge next week. That is a range of value. That's a regression problem. How does the patient is behaving? Okay, is it behaving okay or normal or dangerous? Okay, I have two answers. Either it's going to be normal behavior or a abnormal behavior. So that's kind of a classification problem. Okay, so normal behavior and abnormal behavior. That's the two answers I'm expecting actually. And value-based care, how much value has been delivered? Okay, it doesn't matter how long a patient is in the hospital. So in terms of health condition, what was the care being delivered? And what is the value that has been gained by delivering that value? That's a value-based care. Pay for performance, correct? So I'm not going to pay for you. Okay, I'm not going to pay for how long the patient's in the hospital. I'm going to pay you for the service that what has been delivered and also the outcome of this patient. Okay, pay for the performance of the patient. Like this, there are several use cases you can do. So these are all combination of classification and regression. Classification means the expected outcome, it's going to be binary form, 0 or 1, yes or no, true or false, male or female, cat or dog, boy or girl, etc. So those are the output for the classification problem. Regression, range. So this has both. Example, behavior. If the behavior is normal or abnormal. Normal means it's good. Abnormal means something wrong with this patient. So what kind of problem that is? Classification problem. The next is customer. In the customer, buying products. What product a customer can buy? So these are the products. Okay, so that's not a classification. So that's kind of a range of product that the customer can buy. Buying frequency, 1 to 2 days, 1 to 2 weeks, or twice in 2 weeks, etc., or once in a month, etc. How much the customer is going to spend? Maybe $50 to $100. What is the churn of this customer? Yes, sir, the customer is going to churn out. Sentiment, what kind of sentiment this customer has? Whether the customer is having positive sentiment, negative sentiment, neutral sentiment, right? Like this, you can define them. So these are some of the use cases you can use to build on machine learning, supervised machine learning. Actually, the most simple and easy way to learn machine learning and what is the best way to understand this one, it starts from supervised machine learning. So the first machine learning model, if you want to build one, let's start from simple supervised machine learning. If you watch YouTube, if you watch any other sources, I'm sure there's a ton of examples about creating, identifying, like, male wise female, cat wise dog, okay, etc. So those are the simple, common, easy to use problems. Okay, you could start from there and evolve. So this is basically the key points for you to consider to understand what is a supervised machine learning. Now let's look at what's an unsupervised machine learning. Unsupervised machine learning.
Sorry, one question, sir.
Uh-huh.
With respect to the supervised machine learning, it's kind of a controlled environment where
Yes,
we are
yes,
expecting an outcome.
yes, yes.
So when I was trying to just connect the dots about the self-learning part of it, how
Mhm.
does it fit into this model?
Yes, so the self-learning is, this is what it is. The machine learns and understands the patterns here, correct? So transaction ID is there, transaction date is there, transaction locale is there, amount is there, card verified is there, signature is there. Then it learns and understands that's a valid transaction. So this is basically self-learned. Now, when I give the test data, I don't give the test data transaction 1001, I give test data 2001. So whatever it learned, that's the pattern it understood. Under these conditions, under these circumstances, these transactions are valid. Now I am applying in a test data. Okay, so now the test data is given 2001, 2002, 2003, 2004. So let's say I tested, verified, everything done, no question, it's fine. Awesome. I deployed in a production. In a live production, the transaction not from 1001, 2001, it could be any range of numbers. It could be any combination within this data set. Any combination within the data set. When I say within the data sets, it has a transaction ID, date, location, amount, card verified, signature, etc. It could be any of these data sets. So now the machine creates and understands, it creates a learning algorithm. It applies the learning algorithm on the new data sets. That learning algorithm is basically self-learns. So when I say self-learns, when a new data set comes in, it understands whatever it already learned previously. As I said for your son, or daughter, or brother, or a sister, 2 plus 2, 4, 4 plus 4, 8, 8 plus 8, 16. They learned, awesome, good. Now you're going to test them, okay? So what are you going to test them? I'm going to give 3 plus 3. I'm going to give 6 plus 6. I'm going to plus 9 plus 9. Oh, they did wonderful. After 2 weeks, you're going to give a different problem. So not anymore 3 plus 3, 4, 4 plus 5, 6 plus 6. Now we are going to give 10 plus 10. I'm going to give 20 plus 20. I'm going to 40 plus 40. Are they able to do? Yes. That means they're self-learning. So you're not teaching them. So whatever they learned, they start applying them.
Okay.
So that's basically the concept behind how it works.
Yeah, got it. Thank you.
No worries. Someone else was raising question. I don't know who that is. That's fine.
Hey, Jyoti, Nagapan here. So
Yes,
in
sir.
the training data, do you help to label the data, or how it is happening?
So these are all, it's already there. It's a label is there actually. Like, so the label is basically nothing but like, what it is. You see the last column. So it don't have to be last column. The last column is basically what the machine learns. The last column basically dictates under this condition, it is a valid record. That's the expected outcome. That is called label. That is the output. And that is what we expect the machine to predict.
No. How it is being determined in the training data actually? Is it
So
we have to
the training data, yeah, the training data could be in many cases, like currently I'm working on a simple decision tree. So for that, I use SAP HANA. So I directly map the table. I don't give an Excel spreadsheet like this. Okay. So the table is directly mapped there. It reads from the table and then it understands this one. So answer to your question, if you are expecting, does the table or a file has to have a column labels, correct? Transaction ID, transaction date, amount, etc. Answer is yes. Who needs that one? Not the machine. It is something that you as a human or someone who's working on this one, they can understand this one, okay, for them to understand. So if your question is, do I have to give the column heading? Yes, you can give the column heading. You don't have to even give the column heading. All matters this data sets. The 101, 1001, 1002, 1003, that's what matters. The heading doesn't matter. You don't have to give the heading. The heading is only for the users, not for the machines.
Okay, I got it. Actually, how about the label data column, right? I mean, the 110, the value we are getting.
So that I tell in the program. When I write the program, I tell actually what are the features. I will tell these are the features. This could be my name. This could be Nagapan. This could be Jyoti. This could be Santi. This could be Lakshmi. This could be somebody else. Who cares? So this is mapping. I could do mapping to the program. In my program, I will tell. So there's a feature extraction. So which is basically what the machine is going to do. I'm just trying to go there 1 second. So if you look at the code block, in the code block, so time series, okay, sorry, I went somewhere else. So in the code, I will tell what is the features, the labels, what you have in the file. So that will be somewhere dictated here, correct? So if you see, there's a forecasted column, output, etc. So all these things are given either in the form of here or an INI file. So we use an INI file. In the INI file, we'll tell this. So in this file, I'll tell all the features. Okay, so whatever you have, this one, I use them here actually. So this is for a different purpose, but you can see what is system, computer, and etc. So these are all different product and SKUs. You see this one? So I use this as the labels. So you don't have to really put in the program. So the point, what I'm trying to make you understand, how does the machine learns and understand these things? The machine goes with the actual data, which is in this case 1001, 1002, 1003. The thing what you see on the top, that is basically column header. The column header is basically for you or me or someone to understand what is this column 3 means, this one. So can I give any meaningful name? Yes, it is recommended. Can I give any name? Yes, it is not recommended. But if you give any name, then how do you manage? That is managed in the programming. In the model building, I will tell these are the features. If you don't want to put them in the actual source code, you can put it in INI file, tell what are the features the machine need to understand. Transaction ID is one of the feature. Transaction date is one of the feature. Transaction location is the feature. Amount is the feature. Card verified is the feature. Signature capture is the feature. And label or outcome is the feature. Valid or not is a feature. So like this, you have to tell them in the mapping process. So this could be anything you could do. But to better understand, it's nice to have some meaningful names.
Okay, thank you so much.
No worries. All right. Yes, ma'am.
So let's just say, for example, like we can all implement this in a Python.
Your voice is kind of low, ma'am. Can you come close to the phone?
Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now?
It's
We are
breaking,
able to hear
actually.
you,
Yeah,
but
it's breaking.
it's very low.
Can you hear me now?
All right, try it out. We'll see how far that takes us.
Okay, with Python, let's just say for an example, we can all implement this in a program for a data model, and that can be created.
Can you post your question? I don't want to.
Okay, all right.
So, ladies and gentlemen, I want you to understand the column heading. It could be anything. What I do, if we don't give a column heading, I will talk to business, understand, I will map them. How do I map them? I have two options. Option A, I can use the file, INI file. Okay, I can use an INI file. So this is an INI file where I keep track. You see this one? So this INI file controls the time series model. Okay, it controls this one. So this has the path, this has the features and etc. Correct? Region North America. Okay, region, country, etc. All these things I use this one. Let's say if you don't want to maintain INI file in programming, you can control this one. Okay, in programming, you can control this one. So when you write your source code, in your source code, you can tell future engineering mapping. Okay, so here you could do in program, while you're writing your program, you can build feature engineering code block that will dictate what is column 1 means, what is column 2 means, what is column 3 means, what is column 4 means. That is not a best practice. For a learning you can do, but in your large projects, in a real system implementation, you won't do that. But how I do in my real world example, I directly map an SAP HANA table, correct? So I'm currently working on a project where we use SAP HANA as one of the source. So the way it is, there is a table, there's a calculation view. The calculation view has a column. I map those columns as a feature directly here. I use Python data frame. In Python data frame, you can connect to HANA. When you connect to HANA, you can read a table. When you read a table, it gives the column. You can tell what column is going to be a transaction ID, what column is going to be this, what column is going to be that, then the machine can understand. I hope this.
Jyoti, Sujita's question is, with Python, we can write a program and implement the code.
Answer is yes. Answer is yes. This is a Python code, the code that I'm looking at right now. So the code block, what you're looking at, it's Python. You see this on the top, it's a Python code. This is a Python
One
code.
question.
Yes, Nagapan.
I mean, so you told about the INI file, right? INI
Yes.
file, is it not a hard-coded file then? Like,
so the INI file is not a runtime. It's a static file. You can modify anytime. Source code is the hard-coded. Okay, so INI file is outside our runtime. Okay, it can manage anywhere, anytime. So the reason I'm using the INI file, I don't want to change my source code. Okay, so I don't have HANA to map. HANA is basically a table that I'm mapping directly. Correct? HANA Hadoop, that's a runtime table I can map. Whatever I see runtime, it map it. But here I don't have a runtime table. This is for students to practice. Correct? So students don't have the HANA. Students don't have any runtime system to connect. In that case, the best option is use INI file because you don't want to touch your source code.
Okay, thank you.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense. Yeah.
Jyoti, and her continued question is, and by doing so, can we implement them? By doing so?
Absolutely, absolutely. Yes, by doing so, you can implement the model. That's not a problem, correct? You see this one, correct? So what I did actually, the first step is process the INI file. So what does this file does? This gives me back all the things what I need. What I need in order for me to train the model, the number one point is under supervised. You have to tell the machine what are all the features you are going to provide in the data sets. So basically, I have to tell the machine in the given data sets, you see transaction ID, you see transaction amount, you see transaction location, etc., etc., etc. Correct? You have to tell the machine. How do you tell the machine? In Python, we declare an array. So if you look at here, in Python, we have NumPy, correct? If you scroll down, I implement a NumPy. What is NumPy? It's an array processing. Array processing is nothing but store all this entire file. The whole file will be stored in an array. I read and process one by one. So when I process one by one, column 1 transaction ID go to array number 1. Column transaction date is go to number 2. Like this, I process and store everywhere. And that is done through pandas. Pandas is basically like, the data frame, which is basically processing data from a file or a table or any other devices. Does that make sense? Madam, do you follow that?
Yes.
Yeah, I know until you get involved, these are all looks pretty complex. But I think once you do 1 or 2 exercise, it will be much easier. Okay, that is the reason I told you go step by step. First, understand the concepts. Then second, understand the technology behind the scene. Third, take one simple example. The one we are talking, it's a very simple example. It is not that complex. Okay, it is not that complex. So all it is doing, it is implementing linear regression. You see this one, implementing linear regression. So what is linear regression? It is a regression problem. It's going to give a range of value. Okay, it's going to give a range of value. What is the salary of Mr. Nagapan? Mr. Nagapan is making 50 lakhs to 75 lakhs. That's the range of value. Okay, that's the range of value. So is Mr. Nagapan is going to get promoted as a vice president? Yes or no? Yes, that's a classification problem. That is a classification problem. So in this case, I'm solving a regression problem, which is going to give me a range of values. So in a supervised machine learning, we solve 2 problems. Problem 1, it could be classification. Problem 2, regression. So this example that what I'm showing, time series data analysis, it's a linear regression. It's a regression problem. It's a range of value. So what I'm trying to forecast, I'm trying to forecast what am I going to sell by region, by country, by state and city and zip. So I want to get to that level, do a sales forecast, do a sales forecast. So for that, I'm using this model. So going back, my initial discussion. So what I was talking about here, the difference between training data and a test data in a supervised machine learning. Okay, so do not think you have to have column like this. Okay, the headings. You can put anything. I can call Jyoti 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 like this. Okay, but it doesn't make any sense. It doesn't give a meaning for a reader. Okay, for a machine point of view, machine doesn't care what it is. The machine reads about the underlying data structure, these data. If these conditions are there, it is 1. If these conditions are there, it is 0. If these conditions are there, this is something different. Like this, the machine learns and understands. When you give the test data, what do you expect? The machine to predict the last column, which is the outcome. The outcome in this case, I'm giving another set of transaction where I'm giving 2001, 2002, 2003, 4. Now with other criteria. Under this criteria, is this 0 or 1? It is 1. Under this criteria, is it 1 or 2? It is 0. Okay, so like this, the machine predicts. And this is what we call prediction accuracy. And this is what called confidence level. So when a machine predicts, it has to have 2 parameters, and the model has to give you, as a business user, you have to understand, you have to make sure you know what it is. And it's just simply, oh, it's going to be 0 or 1. That's not you buy in. As a business user, as a tester, you have to all more questions. What is the question you want to ask for? What is the confidence level? What's accuracy? And what confidence level you are saying this is going to be the case, it is true. And what confidence level you are saying this is going to be false. And what the accuracy level here actually. Like this, the model has to give you more key parameters for you to analyze this further as an outcome. The outcome, expected outcome, of course, this, which is this transaction is valid or not. And also from the testing point of view, acceptance point of view, the model has to give you confidence level, accuracy, weightage. Example, out of all the things that what I see transaction ID, date, location, amount, currency, verified, etc. Which one has the highest weightage? Okay, in this case, it may not be relevant. If we are talking about whether Dr. Nagapan is going to get promoted in the next year, yes, he's going to get promoted.
Everyone, please mute yourself.
Okay, so whether Dr. Nagapan is going to promoted, yes or no? Yes, he's going to promoted. What is the reason he's going to get promoted? That is basically the weightage of the feature that what you're looking for. Number 1 is leadership skill. Number 2 is project delivery skills. Number 3 is sales support skills. Out of these 3 skills, which is a top skill which makes Dr. Nagapan to be promoted? The leadership skill. How do you know? That's model weightage. Okay, that's the feature weightage. Out of all the feature, which feature has the highest weightage? Correct? You also has to justify. It is not simply running a model, say, oh, it's going to promote it. It's not simply running a model and say, oh, it's going to turn out. Those are all stories. It's good for learning. But when you go in a real world, the expectation is different. The expectation is you have to justify. Until you justify, no one is going to buy in. Okay, no one is going to buy in. So point what I'm trying to make you, the model, how it learns, under supervised learning, it's a very strict guided approach. If this approach is not there, the model is not going to learn. Okay, and that is where you have to have more mathematics, statistics to rewrite the model, rewrite the classifier, which is not the case in practical problem solving technique. In a practical problem solving technique, the complexity not the model side, the complexity is really on the data side, really on the data side. Okay, it's quite intense. Okay, all right. So I hope you understand the difference between training and test data. Who's responsible for providing the training and test data? If it's a data scientist, if your role is data scientist, you are responsible. If your role is data scientist, you are responsible. If your role is model engineer, like PhDs, who knows only model, then you hire another people who do data engineering. So that could be someone who understands data, who's providing this one. So point is, part of your implementation, design, you have to come up with what is your training data is going to look like, what is your test data is going to look like. So you have to come up with a structure. Based on that, these data are going to be created. All right, let's move on. Okay, so now we are talking about an unsupervised machine learning. So point one to consider, under unsupervised machine learning, there's no goal. There's no expected outcome. Okay, there's no expected outcome. So basically what it is, in a supervised machine learning, you must have to have an expected outcome. And that is why you are saying that, like, the number one is indicates the supervised undergoes a supervision. So there is an expected outcome. We have a goal to achieve. What is my goal? So you give something, I will tell you true or false. I will tell you yes or no. I will tell you male or female. Like that, that's your goal to achieve. All right. Here, there is no such things. Under unsupervised machine learning, so you don't have a goal to achieve. You are not solving a classification problem or a regression problem. That means you give something, I will say yes or no. Or you give something, I will say a range of values. Not that. Under unsupervised learning, I'm doing classification. So I'm doing clustering. Okay. So what does clustering means? We talked about finding similarities and group them. Finding similarities and group them. Okay. Finding similarities and group them. Association. Okay. So associate one set of data to another set of data. One set of data to another set of data. I'll give some examples. Okay. So under unsupervised machine learning, keep your phone on mute, please. Under unsupervised machine learning, what the machine learns and understands basically the relationship between data sets. Okay, so what kind of data you are providing in the given data sets, it learns and understands what is the similarities, what's the association. Okay, so point to consider, under supervised machine learning, you are not looking to solve a particular problem, or you are not expecting an outcome. Point one to consider. So there is no expected outcome under unsupervised machine learning. Under unsupervised machine learning, your training data don't have to have a label. You don't have to tell what is the expected outcome. In my training data, under supervised machine learning, in my training data, I am telling this is my expected outcome. This is my expected outcome. If this happens, this is what I expect. If this happens, this is what I expect, correct? Under unsupervised machine learning, you don't have such things. Okay, you don't have such things. There is no expected outcome. There is no label in the training data. And what kind of problem this solves? This solves clustering and association problem. What is clustering problem? What is an association problem? So clustering is basically nothing but finding similarities and grouping them together. Second is take one record and associate with another set of records. Correct? So that's an association. For example, you have a cell phone bill. The cell phone bill has, like, 3 people. It's a family plan. You get a $1,000 bill. Now, how in the world did it happen $1,000 for the bill? So now I want to really see who made this call. Is mom or dad or son or father? Who made this call? I want to associate each and every call to either father or mother or son. So that's an association. You have a cell phone bill, which is basically usually $100 per month. This month we got $1,500. Oh my God, what happened? Someone made a huge amount of calls. So now we want to associate each and every call. Who made this call? Is it mom made this call? Is dad made this call? Is the son made this call? So that's kind of an association. Okay, that's kind of an association. So clustering is basically finding similarities and forming a this one. So who are the customer bought this product? Okay, so customer who bought this product, like, I have an Apple cell phone. So in a company of 500 people, I want to know out of 500 people, how many people have Apple cell phone? That's clustering. So people who have similarities, they are going to group together. How many Asians, how many Indians, how many black, how many white, how many male, how many female? So that's kind of a clustering. So that's kind of segmenting based on race, age, etc. So that's a clustering problem. So these are the problems typically we solve using unsupervised machine learning. Understand supervised machine learning for two kind of problem, a classification problem and a regression problem. Unsupervised machine learning, it's for sorry, I think messed up. So the supervised machine learning for classification regression problem. Unsupervised machine learning problems are clustering and association. So what kind of problem that we are solving, industry problem that we can solve using clustering and association? So for example, forming a customer segmentation. So which customer is going to spend more money, which customer is not going to spend money, target marketing, which product goes to bought by what customer, correct? Like a kind of marketing. So these are some of the more commonly used problems you can see in the industry perspective. Some of the models came in clustering, hierarchical direction, dimensional direction, KNN. Some of these models are heavily used under unsupervised machine learning. So one point to consider, as I said, the training data does not have the label. The label is basically an expected outcome. So you may or may not even form a cluster. If it's not finding any association, if it's not finding any similarities, it won't be able to form an association. It won't be able to form a clustering. So that is why there's no expected outcome. That is why there's no expected outcome. So basically what it does, it groups the similarities. It groups the similarities. What are the similarities? So in a group of 5,000 people, how many Asians are there? How many Indians are there? How many males are there? How many females are there? So that is kind of forming a cluster based on an association, based on similarities. Okay, based on a similarity. So that's the type of problem typically you solve this one. Okay, so what we have talked about it, we talked about supervised machine learning, unsupervised machine learning. Any questions? Any questions?
Jyoti Nagapan here. So
Yes.
grouping or similarities between the data, right? I mean, that is also a kind of outcome, right? How come you're
But
saying that?
I cannot guarantee what the similarity is. Let's say like you are giving a data set randomly. You are giving a data set. Correct. The examples I gave you have similarities. You are giving a random data sets have no similarity in that one. In that case, you cannot expect an outcome. Correct.
Okay. Okay. Got it. Okay. Yeah.
So we will friends, we have our speakers in, so let us get
Yes,
into
ma'am.
that, and
No
then
problem.
we'll join or we'll take the questions a little bit later. Thank you.
No problem. I'll stop my presentation and we can bring the speakers now.
Yes, Jyoti. I mean, I just wanted to tell the attendees that we would take the questions from the attendees.
Sure. Yeah, definitely. We will continue the discussion. I just wanted to make sure whatever time it takes, okay, I want to finish this one because it's really core of what we want to do. At least some of you asking for where do we get started? This is a get starting points. Okay? So this is a point where you can get started. It will be very interesting, very, very interesting, I can promise. So please stay. We will make sure actually this is done right after the speaking session. Thank you very much.
Sivagami, you can enable your video. Yeah, Shruti. And Preeti, are you able to enable your video?
Hi, yes. 1 second.
Sure. Yeah. Shruti.
So our speaker for this session will be Preeti Kumaresan. Preeti got her bachelor's degree in electronics and communications from Anna University before getting her master's in information systems and technology management at the University of Santa Cruz. She then worked at Cisco for 14 years in various roles. Most recently, she worked as an AI consultant and a business operations manager. And right now she's working as a senior data science manager at VMware. And her entrepreneurial journey started with the Singularity University's Global Startup Program. And today she'll be discussing about how women entrepreneurs can leverage opportunities in artificial intelligence and technology. So let's please welcome Preeti Kumaresan.
Hi everyone. It's great to be here There's a lot of people in the audience, which I didn't expect. It's such a pleasant surprise. So anyways, I guess I was just introduced, so I will go ahead and start. Let me do the screen share. I do have a few slides prepared for today, but I want to make this as much interactive as possible. Please raise your hand, or there's also questions coming in the, if you want to do questions on the chat panel, that's fine as well. So I'll go through my presentation and we'll reserve some time for questions towards the end. If you want to do that, that's fine as well.
Are you able to share?
Yeah, well, all right.
Yeah, we can see.
Okay. So I want to thank Meena and Sivagami for reaching out and making this possible. Definitely thanks to both of you ladies for putting everything together. It's such an awesome show, and very happy to be part of this. So let's go into the screen mode. All right, so I have these definitions here. Obviously, my goal is to talk to you about artificial intelligence, machine learning, deep learning, and applications of it in entrepreneurship, and
Yes, sorry to
especially.
interrupt. I think you have to swap your monitor. Actually, you're sharing the
Okay.
second monitor.
Thanks. Okay.
Yeah, now we're good. Yeah, all good.
Thank you. So, but I also understand you are part of a longer workshop where you're getting into the technicalities of a lot of this stuff. So I won't get into the details of how deep learning is different from machine learning, and or what is supervised learning or unsupervised learning. Just before I joined the call, I just heard Jyoti talk about supervised versus unsupervised learning. So I'm going to try and not repeat. So my hope is to keep it high level and go through some of the technicalities, but quickly jump to applications of it. What I want to say before we start is there is the skill and the craftsmanship of AI and machine learning, the models. How do you apply it? To what data to apply it? And you get very, once you get well versed with it, then the next step is to think about how do you get meaning out of it? How do you make it into something that's useful for your day-to-day life? How do you, once you go down that journey, then the next step is how do you then create a company around it? How do you use some of these technologies to create a company? How do you make that successful? How do you make sure you're solving something that's very important to your customer base? What's your market? What's your product? What's your product market fit? So I'm hoping there will be some questions around that. So as they mentioned, I was a techie, worked in technology for the longest time. And I did my own consulting, took a break from corporate jobs and built a consulting business around AI and machine learning, which gave me the opportunity to apply this technology to different industries and be able to handle and work with multiple teams parallelly. I did a little bit of outsourcing where I outsourced some of my work to a few people in India. Then I was able to, that gave me the room to find contracts with multiple companies in the Valley. And that was a very interesting experience. And sort of as a segue from there on, we moved to, I got into Singularity University. It's a startup program conducted at the NASA base. And we had about 90 people from 45 different countries. It was a 3-month residential program. It's very interesting. I had the opportunity to not only interact with these people in close quarters from around the world, but these were all people from different fields with expertise in law, in medicine, in policy, governance. And there was a huge UNICEF presence there. So you're wondering why UNICEF, of all the branches of the UN, why did they have UNICEF there? It turns out UNICEF is one of the most, they are really focused towards getting emerging solutions, emerging entrepreneurs and technologies, giving them that bandwidth to quickly be present in multiple countries, in Africa, in Europe, and different countries at the same time. So you might be starting a company in the Valley, you might have your customer base, but if you're working with UNICEF, then you might be able to quickly take that idea and take that company to say 10 different countries at the same time. And they give you the resources and they know how to be able to do that. So, well, it was during that time that I had thought about entrepreneurship now and then, but this program gave me the confidence, as well as it was a huge mind shift from being in corporate to starting a company. So this program definitely gave me that mind shift. Being immersed in all of this for 3 months definitely gave me that mind shift. So with that, let me go through some of the slides I have here, some about AI high-level definitions, and then some about what are the applications of AI currently, as well as in the future. I also want to say that when they curated this program at NASA, they made sure that it's their flagship program, Global Solutions Program, and they did the curation. They made sure that at least 40% of the community was women. So that was another highlight, in the sense that I got to meet other women from around the world that are pushing the boundaries in different areas, whether it's biosciences, whether it's gene manipulation, or whether it's policy, whether it's lobbying. So I got to meet these women experts from around the world as well. So I know we are supposed to talk about this specific to women. So any questions you have, I'm happy to answer. There are some resources out there, definitely specifically for women, that you should take advantage of. There are, for instance, Y Combinator has a women cohort, women only. Y Combinator has a startup school, and they have special resources for women. That's just an example of how some of these big ventures in VC funds are catering to women especially. And you should definitely take full advantage of it whenever you see an opportunity like that. So let me go through some of my slides, and then so definitions: AI, machine learning, and deep learning. So I think you're in the middle of a workshop. So again, machine learning is anything, any technique, unsupervised, supervised, decision trees, neural networks, all of this. It's a broad set of techniques. And deep learning is when you have a neural network that is a part of it, that is actually a machine learning technique, but it's capable of learning by itself. It's able to adapt. And artificial intelligence, again, it depends on what the definition is, who you ask. For instance, if you're teaching Siri how to talk and how to mimic a human being, and if you're teaching a robot how to mimic a human being, then that would be artificial intelligence. You're teaching is this intelligence. It's not just a routine task. Like, for instance, if you are trying to predict credit card fraud, and you have transactions from that person, multiple transactions across different, over a period of time, you're learning it, and you're trying to find those transactions that are a fraud. Then that is usually a machine learning topic. Whereas if you're really trying to mimic human intelligence, taking it to the next step, teaching a robot nuances such as emotions, making the robot take its own decisions and it being able to teach other robots. So that is AI, and those are the key differences. But there's a lot of overlap when it comes to the grassroots, the algorithms, the mathematics, the computing power, the computer engineering work that you have to do. There's a lot of overlap between these fields. Let's see. So again, there is, like I said, there's strong AI and weak AI, where you're programming machines to do. Strong AI is where I said you're giving it a human personality, you're giving it that full-blown, you're building something that is intelligent in itself. And weak AI is where you're teaching a machine to perform very narrow tasks. For instance, Samsung is building robots that are very good at picking up stuff. So they have a huge lab specifically for these robots that pick up stuff, and the goal is to automate the whole shelving process that you have in retail stores, in big warehouses, where these robots, instead of humans, they're very good at picking up stuff and then placing them and sorting them out. So that would be a good example of like narrow AI. Again, so I won't get into the details. I also have only like 45 minutes today, so I'm going to skip through some of these slides. So where are we at? This is an interesting one, current state of AI. Where are we today? So are we ready to solve all the problems with AI? Or where are we practically at? So for instance, IBM Watson IBM is invested a lot of resources in terms of AI, and Watson is their premium product. So let's just take that example. 5 years from now, before when I did a POC with IBM Watson, we tasked them with certain text processing use cases, which the system was not able to deliver. So we had to actually stop that POC. We didn't get what we wanted 5 years before, but now they have a Watson chatbot, and you can teach the chatbot different skills, and it does a lot of text mining. So between then and now, I'm already seeing a lot of improvement in terms of NLP, in terms of how far the algorithms have come, especially thanks to neural networks. There's these huge neural networks. Neural network is a machine learning technique, but thanks to tons of computing resources and tons of data available to Google and Facebook, these neural networks have come a long way in terms of being able to solve a lot of problems. Like a lot of problems are already solved. Image recognition, it's already done. There's an algorithm out there, you can feed it. You're not going to build a neural network from scratch. So now it's just application. Image recognition, image identification, face detection. I remember working on face detection algorithms for my master's thesis, but now that's a solved problem. It's not just face detection. There's also algorithms that do face recognition. So you won't be coding these algorithms from scratch. Most likely you will be, if you are a machine learning engineer working in the industry, you will be taking these algorithms, fine tuning the parameters, and implementing them on data that you already have. This is an interesting slide. So talking about taking a step back and talking about entrepreneurship and what's available out there and how is AI being used. I really like this slide in that sense, because it gives you a bird's eye view of, I know it's a year outdated, but when I put this together, it gives you a bird's eye view of everything, every field. What are the major companies, startups, as well as small, medium companies that are using AI. And some of these I'm very familiar with, so I will talk about those that I already know and give you an inkling into what they're doing. If you go to the bottom right, we have, we have Automation Anywhere and UiPath. So what these two companies are doing is they actually got billions of dollars in funding. especially UiPath. It became a hotshot company in 2019, the later part of 2019. What they're doing is RPA, robotic process automation. It's another term that you will hear in the industry. What they're doing is taking jobs that are routine, like if you are creating a PowerPoint presentation, populating it with some data, and then you're presenting it, and you have this cadence, quarterly cadence or monthly cadence that you're doing. These are routine tasks. So they are automating these routine tasks that are done on the computer. So, and they're using, they're not just they're using computer engineering a lot, but they're also using AI to automate some of these paths. An example of something that we're doing in our work currently is looking at contracts. We have, in my work, my team is actually looking at sales contracts, taking the information from there. These contracts come in PDFs, using OCR technology to get that PDF into text. We are not building this technology again. We are using a Google plugin that helps us take this text data, this image data into text. And then we are parsing through that text, matching it with some of the contractual terms that we have to meet. And we're trying to automate that process. At least like there is somebody manually looking through the contracts or the codes and making sure everything's right. So we are trying to automate that. So this is an example of the work that's happening in terms of automating regular routine business processes. Not just business process, any process that somebody's working on a computer that does that. And then Descartes Labs and Orbital Insight, you'll see on the bottom right as well. It's kind of very interesting to me. I've been following them because a company, one of the ideas that I pursued coming out of Singularity Ventures was satellite imagery recognition services. So that was a key core product that we tried to develop using a plethora of, open source and some custom patented or patent pending libraries that we developed for imagery analysis, especially large area maps. So Orbital Insight is a company that specializes in that. And Descartes Labs is also another company that came out of a national lab. They spun off and they built, and their goal was to identify, use again, AI and image recognition. And they were specializing in identifying crops, different crops, crop yields. So if you have maize or barley, so there's a huge, they were getting into the commodities market. So if you are able to identify the health of these crops and based on images, how they're doing ahead of time. And if you're able to predict the yields from these crops a little bit ahead of everybody else, let's say you're able to even predict it 10 to 15 days ahead of it, that itself has a huge impact on how these commodities trade in the market. So that was one of the use cases, identifying using large aerial imagery to be able to influence something like in this case, a financial industry. On top, you see some of the AI companies that are in automation. So Iris Automation, Drive.ai. Drive.ai is actually right here in the Valley. I think it's in Mountain View. I think it's like 15 minutes from where I live. So it's interesting to see these companies where you live. And I mean, I think a lot of you live in the Valley, so it's interesting for you to be able to relate to some of these companies that pop up in a slide like this. So what they do is, again, automation around cars. When you look at cars, there is different levels of automation in cars, L1, L2, L3, L4. So for instance, an L1 automation will be something like the car can park itself, right? Or the car can go in a straight line from A to B. That may be, or the car can brake automatically. And then you go to L2, L3, L4. L4 is full-fledged driving. And I think Tesla is the only thing that has a product like that in the market. And they're not even, and it's not even a complete product, right? So Drive.ai, there's a bunch of companies in that space. You'll see financials. And then on the bottom left, you will see something called training data generation. So what's that about? It's not really an application. How can somebody build a company around just training data? All it says is training data. What does that even mean? They are not in healthcare, they're not in finance, they're not doing automation, they're not industrials. And then you see that all it says over here is training data. Turns out it's actually a huge industry. There are a bunch of companies, especially in China, as well as here, around the world, that just specialize in creating training data. And why is this so important? For any machine learning algorithm, if you go to work or even if in your workshop, you realize that for any machine learning algorithm to work, you need lots and lots of data for you to train the algorithm on. So there is, you just heard about supervised and unsupervised learning. And supervised learning is the most popular machine learning technique to date, with a lot more applications, just because you're able to tell the machine or the algorithm that the prediction it's making, whether it's right or not. To be able to tell whether it's right or not, so you need to have data that for it to train on. So that itself is a huge industry in terms of creating this training data. There are some of these companies. So I know one company. It's again a crowdsourced company run by a female entrepreneur. What she has done is she has an app. Again, she's using crowdsourcing to create training data, where she has an app, and people can take pictures from all around the world in different categories, and they label these pictures. So because it's crowdsourced, what she's doing is providing the platform to get these for people from around the world, anybody, and leveraging the power of the crowds to automatically generate a lot of training data, which you can then sell to companies. Or if I'm someone that's looking to, for instance, let's say I have data. So there's two layers to it. One is crowdsourcing and labeling data that anybody can do. Even a 10-year-old will be able to identify certain images. If you're a teenager is able to identify certain things. If it's text, they're able to label it. So once you create this labeled data, then you can in turn sell it to either an automation company or anybody that's looking for this data, right? And the other piece to it is there are some VR companies, and you must have heard of VR, virtual reality. There are some companies in that space. What they're doing is they use software like Unity to create virtual worlds, gaming, all of that. And there's a slightly parallel industry that is spawned, that these companies are now using AR and VR technologies to create training data for some of these algorithms to run on, for especially images and videos. If you're running AI on videos, if you're looking at the a video is nothing but a bunch of frames. So if you're looking at the progression of frames, then you can use then you're actually training on video data. So and you can actually simulate that type of video in a software like Unity. That's virtual reality that's used to create AR and VR applications. So you will see some companies there that does that. So yeah, so I'll stop there on this slide. So I just wanted to spend a lot of time, more time on this. So just so as to just give you an idea as to what are some of these applications. And then last but not the least, EMR, medical data, medical records, electronic medical records, plus healthcare is a huge business. A lot of insurance companies are getting into this area. And for instance, Lintas is a company that I kind of know of, and there's a whole bunch of others in there. In the current situation with respect to COVID and everything going virtual, you would have seen that a lot of these tech companies are getting a lot of hype. in the market, as well as we are using virtual technologies a lot more. And there's applications for AI in all of these technologies. Whether you work at Zoom, where you are so where you're running a video platform, but you also have features such as you record the video. So I know a friend of mine, a colleague of mine at Cisco, tried to do something around it. He took WebEx videos, and he used machine learning there's the transcription is already available to you in most of these software, like speech to text is already done, but being able to identify certain things in the video, the start and stop of sessions, automatically tagging these sessions. So if you create a YouTube video, you can actually go and add tags. So you don't want to, you can't ask people to watch the whole video. So you tell them, hey, go to 15.5 seconds where I'm doing this, or where I'm saying this, or go to this particular timestamp in the video. So he was trying to he tried to create software around automatically tagging, automatically identifying these sessions, automatically tagging them. So anyways, those are all examples of what's out there for you to go and explore and start a company on, or just get creative to see what's going on in this field. So like I said, AI comes in speech recognition, like I put Alexa, Siri, etc. there, image recognition, recommendation services. This is something that's been used for a long time now. You've been getting recommendations from Netflix, Amazon, retail, customized recommendation services. There's a whole bunch of marketing technology, MarTech, that uses these recommendation services for ad assets management and customization of ad products. So then the next set of slides are fun because there's lots of pictures in them. So there's smart sensors and wearables. There's a huge explosion of wearables. So imagine all of this data that's coming out of Apple Watches and Fitbits. So some of these companies have their own in-house data scientists and machine learning engineers that's working on all of this data. But how do you actually when you collect all of this data, how do you make it actionable? So how do you get value out of these products and take them to the next step? It's not just it's collecting your the latest Apple Watch is able to I think they just released it last week, and it has additional capabilities around monitoring your blood oxygen level. So that was a feature that I think it's the blood oxygen level that then they came out with the new Apple Watch, they announced it. So when you're monitoring all of this, you're generating more and more data. So as we generate more and more data, all of these applications for AI are going to be more and more important, because you want to track this data, look at patterns in it. So what's normal heart rate for somebody? What is normal activity level for somebody? And when are they deviating from that normal? What are some of their patterns? And what type of suggestions can you give them? Not just in terms of monitoring their lifestyle and fitness, but also in terms of monitoring and managing some of the chronic diseases that they may have. And insurance companies are very interested in this type of work, because it saves them mondo bills later on, right? So that's yeah. So that's again, this is again lifestyle. So you must know about this company. It's called Mirror.co. It's become very popular, especially during this pandemic. So you have a mirror, you do exercises on it, and then the mirror also tracks your body movement. And then it gives you suggestions on how to correct yourself. So in the future, maybe you won't have regular mirrors, but you will have mirrors with AR in them. So it's already there. People have these mirrors already in their homes, and the sales for this company, I guess it's been skyrocketing, especially during the pandemic, because people want to exercise at home. So in the future, these are the types of mirrors you'll have, right? So as well as on the right side, nutrition and lifestyle. So there are apps already out there where you can if you're before eating, you take a picture of your food, and every time you eat, you consult the app, and it tells you the caloric value of your food. And what it does internally, it uses a lot of image recognition. Like I said, image recognition is a very successful AI area. There's some areas where AI has been more successful than others, and image recognition, identification, imagery has been one of those. So here is an example of a lifestyle app. So what they're doing here is they're using two technologies. One is AI, and they're using augmented reality. So augmented reality and virtual reality is another two upcoming parallel fields. So that is AR, VR, and I heard about something called XR. So I was like, what is XR? XR is AI plus AR, VR. So there you go. There's an official term coined around it as well. So that's a budding industry, as you see. So there's AR components that are coming up. So it'll tell you the pills, dietary pills, what's your current weight, what's your goal. So it even tells you your current weight is 189 pounds, but after you eat this plate with pancakes and beef patties and all that butter, then your weight after that will be up by 4 pounds. So if you actually see that in real time, then maybe you won't eat all of it. So this is a lot of fine-tuned, customized lifestyle products that are in this space. So again, this is another example of an Apple Watch that was in the news. Emergency services on Star, and geriatrics is a key area. Elderly patient care. They have things that they use wearables now. They don't want to be monitored by a video; it's too intrusive. So they use motion sensors and different things. So as to be able to maintain their independence and not move to a facility and still stay at home. So that's another area as well. Companies like AARP, if you work on something in this area, I know AARP has a fund where they encourage entrepreneurs in this area to apply, and especially in terms of geriatrics, insurance, and elderly patient care. Yeah, this is another example of using, again, image recognition. You don't need to, your smartphone is actually very, very, very powerful. It's getting to be almost as powerful, especially with the application of smartphones combined with edge versus cloud technologies and IoT. Then they're going to be even more powerful because they can be the edge devices. They can send the data that they collect to a cloud, and they can communicate with other large networked huge servers. And that opens up another area of just using your smartphone as a sensor. So here you'll see that. Here you see how they're actually able to not just look at, not just zoom in and look at it, but they're also diagnosing. So he gets an image, and then in real time, there's a machine learning algorithm that compares the healthy eye versus other examples here, and it even comes up with the diagnosis. So this is another area where computer vision is up and coming. So those are the fun slides with lots of pictures. So what's the technology behind all of this AI is natural language processing, computer vision, neural networks, deep learning, machine learning, and different types of neural networks. So when you go into deep learning itself, there's so many different types of deep learning algorithms. And if you are looking to get skilled in this, there is definitely a talent gap. So if you are looking to get skilled in some of these areas, if you're already a good computer engineer or a full stack engineer, or if you're a manager that's trying to build a team around, or trying to see how you can use AI in your current team, whether you're an entrepreneur or if you have a business, and everybody's talking about data and the data economy, and you have to be able to leverage data if you want to build a successful business. You have to have that competitive edge. You keep hearing about all that. So So what do you do? How do you, so you're new to this, you don't necessarily want to go and study this technology and figure out how all these algorithms work, or how to get this data, or what data to collect. So there are resources available to you as someone that's a product manager, an entrepreneur, or a senior executive that's trying to get this technology into their fields. There's resources available as well. So yeah, future of AI. This is the future is already here. So we have self-driving cars, medicine, AI-generated responses. Again, chatbots is another area where AI is being used more and more. The technology behind chatbots has already been there, the chat messaging services, but now it's that adding that additional layer of natural language processing to be able to spin out lots of chatbots really fast. So one of my friends was telling me about she works in she's a VP in healthcare, and her team has spun out, depending on the type of insurance and the particular area that they're dealing with. So she has a team of people that spun out about 500 different chatbots, all specifically specialized to a particular topic. So that's an example of how AI and machine learning are impacting the service industry, customer service, as well as being able to resolve support tickets really fast. Yeah, so this is a pyramid in terms of AI. So I won't get into the details of all this. So I'll stop my slides here, and I'll open up for any questions.
Yeah, thank you, Preeti. Thank you for updating us on the latest AI products, cool AI startups, and talking about the women entrepreneurship. I have a couple of questions for you. Could you please share with us the challenges that you faced as a women entrepreneur in AI, and how did you overcome that?
So, so the way I would answer that question is, I wouldn't say there are specific challenges as a women entrepreneur in AI that you face. It's the same sort of challenges that you face as a woman in technology or a woman in entrepreneurship. Those same general set of rules and apply. Getting adoption, but when you're in a corporate setup, you have HR, there is inclusion and diversity seminars, people are getting aware of it, and then depending on how many women you have in your team, it's easier to interact and get that rapport going. So HR, inclusion and diversity, all these women empowerment programs, the corporates are investing a lot in it, and that's coming up, and there's a lot more women, and it's almost becoming commonplace in certain areas, right? And technology is one of those fields where there is a lot more women in some sense yes, and in some sense no. Because when you are in technology, then you are valued for a particular skill. So if you're really, really good at coding, and if you're really, really good at doing what you're doing, they don't care who you are in some sense. But what happens when you step out of this cocoon of the corporate world, and you're out there on your own? So when you're entrepreneur, you're out there on your own. It's up to you to go find customers, to go talk to VCs. So you are definitely, you're not provided all of these resources. You don't have an IT team, so you might have to go talk to Amazon and get some startup credits, to get some credits on AWS, so you can build something out there, because you don't really have the server capacity. You can't just like launch an app with your laptop. You need the compute resources. So you are talking to everybody, and you're out there on your own. So it's definitely a little bit more challenging than being in a corporate world. But that said, whatever type of entrepreneur you are, whether you're doing in AI, whether you're doing in you're starting a medical company, whether you are starting a fashion company, something like Stitch Fix, it's a company, again, was started by a woman entrepreneur. She's from MIT. She's an MIT alum. So they do face the same set of I would say challenges, or in other words, opportunities. Let's just say they're opportunities instead of challenges. And so just leverage all the resources that are out there, in terms of grounding yourself, in terms of speaking up, in terms of having a presence, in terms of being professional, in terms of being inclusive, and just hone these skills while you work in the industry, and take as many of these seminars and expose yourself. So when you come out of this corporate world, when you're out there, and you're not paid, so your paycheck is not, it's up to you to go find the next client and convince him or her and get that project. So, or you know, you don't have a paycheck. So if you put yourself in that real world, so then that's another situation where you will be forced to come out of your shell, because it's just what you have to do. So I hope that answered your question.
Yep. And one more quick question. So you talked about crowdsourcing. When you want to label the data, you talked about a crowdsourcing platform. I'm just wondering, how can you maintain quality when you crowdsource data for labeling? Because if you feed garbage into AI models, you will get only garbage out of it. How do you maintain quality?
Yeah. So again, there are, when you go to the crowdsourced environment, there are different techniques. One is being able to build trust. So 10 years from now, if you said something, the company like Airbnb, where you would open up your home to strangers to come in and be able to, and you're sharing your home with strangers, not just once, but you're doing it constantly. You're just renting out a room to multiple people. So 10 years before, people didn't think that they were not, maybe 20 years before, they didn't have that trust built, that social trust. But with the backing of a company like Airbnb, that sort of acts as the mediator, that vets both parties. They check ID, they check who you are, they sort of have these quality checks before they match you up. So that in general, that's how crowdsourced technologies in general came up. But we're talking about specifically about crowdsourced knowledge sharing. So in that case, I would use the same, I would say the same business model, or the same user management model, like as a platform like maybe Stack Overflow. So where you have some experts, there's different levels of experts, and different, for instance, labeling, there's different levels of people, group 1, group 2, level 1, level 2. And then then there's experts and admins that are monitoring the whole process. So so when you actually do a good job, you get, it's also gamification helps as well. When you do a good job, then you get certain credits, and then your reputation grows up. So even within that crowdsourced environment, you're able to establish a reputation for yourself, whether you are, whatever side you are on. So whether you're a consumer of this labeled data, so how much are you consuming, how frequently do you request, what's your pay rate for these, let's say, this set of data, as a consumer as well as a producer of this content, there's some of these tested models that you can leverage: gamification, reputation building, authority building, and monitoring the network in terms of authority, in terms of contribution, all of that.
Thank you.
There is one question in the comment section. So Anuradha wants to know, is there fraud detection in crowdsourcing?
Fraud protection.
No, detection, she has said.
Oh, okay.
So I think they said both. I think then they're both related, right? You have to detect fraud in order to be able to protect yourself from fraud. So definitely, that's where AI helps as well. Whenever you are in any crowdsourced platform, whether it's Airbnb, or there's a crowdsourced platform for cars, right? So you actually, if your car is sitting idle now, you wouldn't have thought that even like 5 or 6 years before, you wouldn't have thought that, oh, hey, my car is sitting idle, so let me just make some money out of it by renting my car out. So in all these situations, yes, that's why. So Getaround is an app like that. So that's why if you generate a crowdsourced company, you being if you want that company or that platform to be successful, you being able to take some of that legal responsibility on your end is something you can't get around. So you have to take that upfront risk, and you have to have features in place to detect fraud, as well as give your clients certain level of protection, so they trust. And you have to establish your credibility so they trust you to come back to you. And that's very important in any type of crowdsourced business. And to answer that question a little bit in detail, so machine learning is an area where you can use pattern detection, the same type of fraud detection algorithms you will use for credit card fraud. For instance, you're looking at transactions, you're looking at who's making the transactions, what they're buying, where they're buying it. So this pattern, being able to leverage these user patterns, again, using machine learning, it is one way to detect fraud.
Nice. Thank you. Thank you, Preeti. And is there anything? Yeah, that's about the question that she had. She said, thank you for answering. Thank you, Preeti, for, on a Sunday, you are like, you spent your afternoon session for us, and it was very informative. Thank you very much for joining us and giving some knowledge about all the companies. And it was really informative for all the ladies in here joined today. Thank you very much.
Sure. Yeah, my pleasure. Thanks for having me today. I'll hang around here for some time. If you have any questions, I'll be on chat. I will put down, or you can also, Sugami and Meena, they know how to get hold of me as well. So in case there's any follow-up, I'll leave it to them.
Sure.
All right. Thank you, guys.
Mr. Jyoti?
Yes. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, we can go for the next speaker. I see our speakers are in.
So who do we have?
We have both. Can you see them?
No. Who's coming next? Actually, like in the agenda.
Oh, they can decide. As per the agenda, I think it would be Ms. Faye.
Faye. Okay, so I'll introduce Faye to now.
All right, thank you.
Hi.
Hi, Faye, are you there?
Yep, I'm here.
Okay.
How are you?
Sure. Thanks, Faye. Thanks for coming, actually. So I don't take too much time, Faye. I know you have a lot to cover. I just quickly introduce you to. I know Faye since I was in Deloitte. She was my senior at Deloitte. She worked for Deloitte. And then she hired me at Blue Shield. She was my boss at Blue Shield. I worked for her. Then Faye moved to Kaiser. She was the VP of Technology, Innovation, Strategist. She was at an executive level. And I moved on my own track at KPMG Ernst & Young, but we kept in constant communication. Faye's been involved in the space of artificial intelligence, data science, data engineering. And being a woman, she's an entrepreneur. So right now, she serves in boards, and she also invests in a lot of companies, startup companies, especially in healthcare. I thought it's good to hear from Faye and how her journey was, and what an advice she may give for all these beautiful women, so that they can apply that in their practice, or career, or life. With that said, welcome, Faye. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Jyoti. So great to be here with you. And I saw you had a packed agenda. I was going to but I want this to be as interactive as possible. So please chat, ask questions. You don't have to wait till the end. I love more hearing from all of you. I do have some slides.
Sure. No, I said, sure, please feel free to use your slides. If you have slides, please feel free to.
I will present them and just, can you see them?
Yes, we can.
Okay. I'm trying to make it go in presentation mode, but I don't think it's going to work.
Yeah.
Ah.
And full screen, please.
Yeah, hold on. Okay, screen. Okay. Is that working?
We can see your screen, Faye. It's fine.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
And then please feel free, now that I'm in full screen, I'm not going to be able to see chat. So Jyoti, if there's questions, just feel free to break in anytime.
Sure, sure.
Anyone else? So first, I would love to, I know there's a lot of people on here, but please introduce yourselves in the chat too, because I would love to hear where you're from, what you're doing, where you are in your journey, and also AI. So I'll be focusing on innovation and investment, inclusion, and kind of the AI space in healthcare, but would love to kind of know all the 100+ of you here too, as well as what you're doing. So.
And there are some in YouTube. It's live in YouTube too. Close to 300 participants.
Oh, wonderful. Wonderful to hear that. As Jyoti was saying, kind of my background has been a lot in emerging technologies, innovation, having worked at AIG, a large global insurance, Kaiser Permanente Healthcare, Blue Shield, Schwab, FinTech, Deloitte. I have 2 of my own companies, one in innovation consulting with Mirai, doing a lot of global work in innovation, and Vanage, where we're working on investments and investing in startups. So my passion is all about innovation and investment, but we really need to be more inclusive to have a greater impact in the world. So feel free to reach out to me too on LinkedIn. So trends, I wanted to kind of just say, as we kind of step back, we know what's happening across the world and given COVID. So we know that there is a little bit of a downturn happening, and it's the fastest kind of downturn we've seen compared to the global financial crisis, which happened over 17 months. This was over 1 month where we saw a really deep decline. This is from Silicon Valley Bank and the report of the state of the markets as of Q2 and all the work happening. So as we kind of put the frame in here, I just wanted to kind of be cognizant of what's happening around the world and there. Then you might ask, then what's happening with our startup ecosystem? I'm coming in from Silicon Valley here right now, but what we see per the Startup Genome Report is it's expanding. It's becoming more global. We see more ecosystems really putting money into startups, venture, innovation, technology. So we really see that, and you kind of see some of the ranking of the cities internationally from that standpoint. Given that this is a very international audience from that standpoint, I wanted to say that we continue to see that grow from that standpoint. So given all the news that we have right now and where it's going, I did want to also say, with the pandemic, social disruption, political changes, a global economy, with this adversity drives more innovation. So we saw even during the dot-com crisis and the global financial crisis, some of the largest successful startups founded in that time. So as you're kind of thinking about your journey and where you're going, we think this is a wonderful opportunity for kind of a great reset, as the World Economic Forum puts it, and also a time to think more innovatively as AI and emerging technologies empower that. So what I'll be talking about is AI is transforming healthcare, but it's transforming industries. So whether how you pay for your healthcare and financial institutions, the healthcare itself, the care you get, or the insurance that's going around, it's now becoming this hybrid where it's accelerated from a digital standpoint of getting virtual care, given COVID, and the acceleration of the use of that. So a lot of things are happening. And I noticed from a lot of your speakers too, talking about all the different trends happening. Here are some of the trends that I've been monitoring as well, is from the sharing economy. And, we also see that's probably going to likely increase as the number of unemployed are there, and having them think of more creative ways as well as entrepreneurial ways to get different monies in as well and diversify. But also we saw a lot of, just as Priti was mentioning, from Internet of Things, sensors, clouds, and all the data coming in that AI can research.
from that standpoint. And now there is a discussion that AI, emerging technologies, is now so much out there. It's not as much of a differentiator, but it's access to the data and insights. So as you're looking through your AI, looking at other opportunities, we'll be talking more about that. But as you see, a lot of different trends happening on innovation and technology going out, and noted on the data and AI here. But if you know, data and AI is through all these trends, because every one of these technologies are spitting off data and what insight you want to do from that data as well. One thing I wanted what is the state of AI in enterprise, and how can you compete to win from that? These 2 days, you've been learning all the great and in detailed parts of AI, but you really need to, in order to differentiate, how are you going to use it with a creative approach? How are you going to be smart about it and really addressing risks? So see, as far as trending, is that the top benefit areas have been making processes more efficient and enhancing existing ones. But I think to more differentiate you for the future is how are you going to differentiate and bring new products and services, bring new insights from that standpoint. So I think we're going to get to a whole new level of AI, and that the adopters of the kind of these high skill area. It's great to see all of you here increasing your AI capabilities and skill sets and knowledge from that, because I think it will be something that really helps transform and will be an invaluable skill from that standpoint. So you might then say, well, how will we use AI? And I know several speakers were talking about there's so many uses of AI. Right now, we see kind of surveying kind of most companies, it's been more process efficiency. I think in the future, it will be more about improved decision-making and automation from that standpoint, and actually new products and services. So some of these will kind of be continuing to evolve up and differentiating, versus right now, it's been more process efficiency, operational efficiency. So as we kind of gain some of these new insights, enable new business models, I think that's where AI could really be transformative going forward. Are there any questions, thoughts? Feel free to chime in. As you increase your competitive advantage of AI, it's really, we see a lot in the data infrastructure side, and a lot of AI startups, as other speakers have said, but it's really about how are we going to deploy these platforms and the partnerships, right? And so as we kind of look at this, it's going to continue to evolve, and increase your competitive advantage. You're going to have to continue to keep evolving, be creative with your skill set. So for several of you considering AI companies, whether it's large or small, you know, the likes of kind of the Google and Apples of the world, or the startups, as other speakers were mentioning, I wanted to kind of give you 5 questions for you to consider as an individual. So when you are talking to that company and you're considering working with them, partnering with them, you know, buying their service from that, what is their value proposition? What problem are they solving? And does it really require AI? Are they being honest and representative of their capabilities? Are they articulating that really well with a proven business case? Do they have reference clients? Because there's a lot of AI companies out there and startups, but really what are they doing beyond the PowerPoint kind of deck? And then if you're considering joining kind of a startup from that, does that company look like it will be around in the future? Do they have a sustainable investment stream? Do they have a pipeline of customers? You know, so really look at like how strong are they and how can they weather? As we mentioned, there's kind of this global downturn at this moment. So how can they sustain from a kind of track record? Find a company that's flexible and agile. The executives are listening. They can take advantage of fast moving trends. They listen to the customers and the employees. They're able to move very quickly. And also a company that really builds on trust and transparency. from how it's training its AI and testing. What we find now is, as you can see, a lot of pressure on some of these large companies to be more transparent and to build that public trust. So you want to make sure you're going into a reputable company that is building that digital trust through their AI and using it effectively and with integrity. Also, you want to make sure that they're providing adequate support for the employees, the users, and developers. So are they there for people, or is it just like this empty AI tech shell and then they're not there to help support people? So these are kind of 5 questions or thoughts as you consider an AI company, whether you're engaging them for services, trying to join that company, things that I thought you should look at as well. So was going to dive a little bit in healthcare investments and going from that. So just a quick kind of like little bit of an overview. I don't know if my screen's being blocked by this one. Pre-seed, we see a growing pre-seed.
Yes.
Okay. We see a growing pre-seed area. So you're bootstrapping, it's friends and family. You're really exploring the feasibility of an idea, creating your minimum viable product, testing the market, developing your sales plan. But I want to note 29% of the startups fail in this stage because they run out of capital and are not able to get into seed. And there's, so the majority kind of fall in this area. And going into seed capital, that's when you're kind of doing your angel investors, your crowdfunding, your micro VCs, your accelerators. That's where you're kind of launching the product, building traction, recruiting your team, building it up your case, building your milestones, and your customers to be able to raise more formal Series A through D rounds with venture capital. And as you progress and super angels, and as you mature into later stages, private equity, hedge funds, banks. So that's when you've got your working business model, your key team in place, you've developed your product further, you have a scalable plan and executing on it, you've increased your market share. One of kind of the theories is basically you need to find 30 investors and reach and talk to them. 10 will be interested and 2 will invest. So it's going to be a lot of discussions and conversations out there. And we know with the earlier stage companies right now, it's taking more discussions and more time right now as well. Did want to mention too, there's kind of exits. You've seen IPOs, SPACs, merger and acquisitions, and exit community. So we're seeing some, traditional IPOs that are going there, and then these special purpose funds that are actually just created to buy out companies. And from that standpoint, exit to community is where you're exiting to your consumer base as also an emerging area as well. So. Please feel to chime in if you have any questions. I tend to talk a little fast from that standpoint. So one thought is, and this was kind of mentioning here, is we've seen with kind of the downturn too, 4 out of 10 startups today are in the red zone, meaning they don't have as much capital and they could run out of capital very short with kind of 3 or fewer months of capital runway. So we're seeing a crunch for capital in that standpoint. So if you are thinking of that startup, make sure they have a good capital runway and where they're looking at as well. We're also seeing that the startups that were there are seeing their revenue drop. 72% of the startups saw their revenue drop, about 32%. While 12% saw significant growth. And that's where we kind of saw very COVID-related startups happening in the digital health area as well. Tech, AI, remote working, and AI, big tech data as well. So that's there as well. Healthcare mid-year report. 36 venture-backed IPOs went public, $1 billion. There's been an increase in health tech deals. from that period, and it's really been for venture-backed healthcare companies. It's really, we've seen a growth. The healthcare AI deal specifically saw an uptake, and it raised $1.1 billion. So wanted to kind of say healthcare AI is doing well in this period of time. I'm looking at it. So you'll see healthcare venture capital itself, almost within just half a year, equivalent to what they raised in 2019. So it's, 6 months equivalent to what was all raised last year. So significant amount of venture capital coming into this area, given light of COVID. The number of deals continues to be healthy in this area as well. You kind of see the number of deals happening kind of throughout time, so it continues to be healthy. I think what you've seen is there was a little bit of a pause during the beginning of COVID as people were trying to assess their current portfolio and support their current portfolio and then get back on track. So you see that kind of progressing more. Healthcare AI funding was up 14%, so surpassing the $1 billion mark as far as number of deals. Do that quick one. You see the likes of Andreessen and Horowitz, one of the accelerators from the Bay Area, really starting to place bets on AI healthcare payments, but a lot of the venture capital placing a lot of bets in AI and healthcare. But this is just any questions on investments or anything I spoke to date? I'm going to go into, so what happens if we don't have diversity inclusion in our innovation in AI technology? You have some of these headlines, right? Time magazine saying AI has a problem with gender and racial bias. The Economist saying voice recognition doesn't recognize accents equally. It was, when my mother, Asian immigrant, was trying to use Siri and it did not recognize her accent at all and came up with the most hilarious translations of it, but it just did not work. We also know facial recognition is not as accurate for minorities as well. And as we look at AI, and as Jyoti was talking about how we train the systems, we need to make sure that the data we're training our system is very inclusive and diverse. Some of the reasons why some of this happened is we might not have a diverse workforce, really considering the data that is in there. We might not have a very diverse data set. So for example, some of our AI technology was trained on what view was of leadership and historical leadership databases and press releases and speeches. But then that tended to prominently be white male leaders. So just be really careful as we look at it to kind of avoid the bias from that. Did want to also mention, if you're interested,
Hey, you are muted. Can you unmute, please?
Yeah, I'm not able to hear Ms. Faye. Ms. Faye?
I sent her a text.
Okay. I think her audio got disconnected.
Yeah.
Still not able to hear. Is she able to hear us? I don't know. Mr. Jyoti, could you just text her again saying that she has to
Yes,
join?
I did.
Okay, thank you.
Maybe she can try connecting back.
I did tell her actually, so
Okay.
otherwise I'll call her. Yeah, we can hear you great. So you probably have to drop and rejoin.
Yeah.
Sorry about that. No problem. That's fine. Sorry.
Okay.
She's going to rejoin now. So I hope this session kind of gives some insights for the participants to get to know where industry stands in terms of investment. If we wanted to get started with startups, so how do you start the journey? What are the things people look for? I'm sure it gives some insights. So the rest you can formalize, you can take it forward, you can reach out to her. We have all the.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you now.
I'll just
Okay.
I'll just allow you to share your.
Okay. Let me see.
Okay.
Does that work?
Yes.
Okay. I apologize for that. The joys of Zoom.
It happens, Faye. No worries. Technology.
The joys of technology. Okay. So one thing I was saying, I just wanted to, if we have greater diversity and inclusion, which is why I was so glad to, Jody approached me about this, is all of you here represent that greater diversity and inclusion. If we have more of you in AI, there's going to be better performance, more innovation. Now, studies have shown that there'll be even greater growth in 45% growth in market share, 70% in capturing a new market. Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can. We can hear you.
Okay. Sorry, I keep getting
fine.
pings.
Sure.
That you could have also 2 or plus more product innovations and more corporate resilience when you have a more diverse and inclusive technology and AI team, that you're more likely to understand the customer. So I was also including here some diversity inclusion tool sets, some of the cases for change as well. So I'm advocating that not only will you be more innovative with more inclusion, but you'll also attract more investment and have greater impact. So love to see kind of the diversity in this team and kind of championing it from that way.
Sure.
So what can you do as you're looking at kind of AI? I wanted you here, all of you here, getting more education and more experience and exposure with this 2-day session, which is wonderful. The one part I kind of would like to add to that is your empathy. You all have a unique perspective that you bring to it, a unique talent, a unique experience from that. But with that empathy too, we also have to understand our biases. So I was just advocating, Harvard does an implicit kind of bias training and a quick test that's right online there as well. It might be of interest for you as well. Stanford offers some really interesting tools as you kind of look in towards inclusion for the future. With the VMware Women's Leadership Innovation Lab, that might be of interest for you as well. And as we kind of look at it, I wanted to really kind of focus on questions and kind of comments from that. But as you look for AI, it's going to continue to be innovative to help you personalize, predict, be creative in what you're doing. We see a lot of AI out there and a lot of work in that area, but it's going to continue to evolve. Be inclusive, so be connected with other groups, advocate for diversity, leverage diverse teams and skill sets. And as we look towards investment, make sure you're quantifying the impact. We see a rebooting of purpose of the why, the value you're giving in that, and also addressing the risks of AI as well. So I wanted to open it up for questions from that standpoint. So I'll stop sharing here.
Sure. I think there's a question from Shalini. Shalini, what's your question? You can ask the question. Shalini?
Thank you so much, Ms. Paul. It's a lot of great insights and great details. So one of the questions I have was, so how do we get to okay, what are the AI startup companies around, maybe Bay Area or whatever, or in general? And then I know you also spoke about some investment. So let's assume, if I'm not trying to start my own, but I'm trying to invest in one of these. So how do I get some details or resources? So any points around these two would really help.
Yes, great question, Shalini. So there are a lot of AI startup companies. I know our past speaker just presented a kind of snapshot from CB Insights. So CB Insights is always doing reports on kind of AI as well. And I kind of quoted several reports as well of all the different startups out there. Also based on your area and locale, really working with your accelerators and kind of startups in that area. So I think some mentioned the Y Combinator, 500 startups, plug and play. And if you look at seed rankings, and I can put that into the text as well, it shows a list and ranking of like close to 200 accelerators globally that kind of list and work with all different startups. So as you're looking to kind of invest or advise startups, accelerators are a wonderful way to get exposed to them and be an informal advisor to them as well. And then and learn about kind of trends in startups coming up. But for that list of accelerators, it's seedrankings.com. So you kind of see a list of all those startups. And then your second question is, what about the option and resources to know about those new companies? There are not only from CB Insights where you can kind of see a lot of the latest trends, but if you start kind of more looking on your tech crunches, your Crunchbases, you will say all the latest investments. PitchBook also has also all the latest startups and investments in that area as well.
So I see one more, two people have a hand raised, Zoom 303. Could you just unmute yourself and ask your question? Okay, Maitreyi, you can ask.
Sure, thank you. Thanks, Ms. Faye, for this wonderful session. I think it was very insightful. This is Maitreyi, and I'm participating in this workshop from Detroit. My question was to just, through your experience in working with the various AI startups, what do you think are some of the key roadblocks that a lot of them face when they go out seeking for investments? And are there any specific roadblocks or watchouts that most of these AI startups have, given that the growth and the whole idea behind having AI-based solutions is actually mushrooming everywhere? So are there any watchouts that a lot of these startups need to have as they grow forward? Thank you.
That's a great question. As you're mentioning, there are a lot of startups there. So you need to be very clear on your value proposition. How are you different? How are you going to kind of sustain? Also getting quick traction. So getting out quickly to potential clients, customers, getting them to adopt the technology, have that traction as well, and kind of those collaborative partnerships. So I think it'll be important to really differentiate yourself and your value proposition. Know who your competitors are and how you differentiate. So you're going to have to do your homework on the market and product fit.
Okay, sure. Thank you.
No problem.
I have a question for you, Ms. Faye. Thank you for the wonderful presentation. So with respect to VC funding, what we hear is women-owned startups get only 2% of the funding from venture capital community. So with this AI and the inclusion issues and the awareness, do you think this is going to change a little bit, move in the positive direction? Maybe from 2% to 5%?
Yeah, I think it is starting to change in that direction. An interesting trend that's happening is that there are now only, there's some specifically targeted funds. So women only funds investing in women startups like All Raise and also investing in minority kind of startups. We've also seen some incentives in that area and some communities in that area. So I would really engage with them as well. We're also seeing pressure for the venture capital to be more diverse, not only in the venture capitalists themselves being more diverse, as you mentioned, having more women and people of color in the VCs, but also investing in more diverse founded startups. So with our venture fund, we are focused on to kind of like having a diverse portfolio of founders from us, as well as geographies as well. As I was mentioning too, is we're seeing also a diversification of venture capital and money coming in these other ecosystems happening globally as well, which I think will also add to that kind of diversification. So there's a promising trend to increase that 2% up higher. Do we need to do a lot more? Yes. So would we like it to go faster? Yes, from that. So there are some promising trends that are happening.
Thank you.
Great point.
Any other questions?
Hi, Ms. Faye. This is Shanti. You have mentioned that there is 44% in red zone. Being that, what kind of encouragement can you give for women who are trying to venture in this entrepreneurship to give them some confidence to come out of the cocoon to venture into a make or break situation?
Yes, no, it is a critical time, but it is that persistence. We're going to need that kind of persistence in what we're kind of doing. I would also strongly encourage you to actually join a targeted accelerator. So there are, like, for example, if you're doing AI in healthcare, specifically, there are accelerators focused on the healthcare industry, like Startup Health, Rock Health, and then, or if it's high tech or if it's enterprise. So kind of as I mentioned, that seedrankings.com tells you hundreds of different accelerators and what their focus areas. I would strongly encourage you to go in one of these accelerators because they have mentoring programs, they have training. You can go kind of in cohorts, they get you connected, they introduce you to other people and funders. And in that in itself, it kind of gets you through a vetting preparation process. So definitely recommend you from that time. And we need diverse founders. So the more we have you there from that, trying to find a mentor in your industry as well, or an advisor, I think will also help.
Thank you.
Any other question? So Faye, I have one question. So this is more for on behalf of the audience. For the last 2 days, it's been great. It's been a lot of experience, a lot of exposure. I learned a lot from them. They learned a lot from us. So the one thing that I can sense, a lot of are interested in career transition. They are in a traditional software engineering. Either they do systems analysis, software testing, software development, project manager, whatever you name it. So that's what they are doing. So their question is, how do we transition from such role into artificial intelligence or a data science or a digital transformation? Any of those new upcoming role? So the question is, how do you see startup companies in enterprise market? Because we do see a lot of startup companies focused on building apps, right? So we have an app, it detects the face, it tells male or female. That's just small things, right? But the enterprise market is huge. It's so difficult. It is not just building an app and telling that it's a male or female or cat or dog or whatever, right? That market is quite different. So how do you see startup companies who's supporting or more around an enterprise market, which creates a lot of employment opportunities? Because that's what the ultimate goal for these participants, right? So they want to find better employment, enhance their career, or advance their careers. How could they go in that path? So for that, I'm just asking on behalf of them, is there any startup company which focuses on enterprise AI markets?
Yes, there's a lot of startup companies focusing on enterprise. So Jyoti, as you're mentioning, the B2B, business selling to business, right? In the enterprise clients versus the B2C selling direct to consumers. And what we're seeing is an emerging trend is B2B to C, right? So it's selling to businesses then to sell it to consumers. So regarding kind of this trend, so say you're a product manager now trying to really get into AI, I would actually use that to your advantage. AI in itself is a wonderful tool, but it needs to be applied. So now try to uniquely position yourself, and especially in startups, early stage startups, they like people with diverse skills, right? Because you have small teams, tight budgets. So you can say, I can do AI and product management. I can do this and that, right? I can now apply from my previous career in now adding the AI intelligence to that. So I would say, it's a transition, an additional complement, an additional tool to your skill set as well. So if you're trying to apply for startups in that area, we do see a lot of large companies kind of engaging on kind of AI recruiting as well, and kind of looking at that. And Jyoti is probably more an expert in that area than I am. But we definitely see a lot of startups needing the AI technology, but also whether it's what your existing career, whether it's product management, marketing, sales, technology, that will also be a component because you play multiple roles when you're in a startup.
Awesome. Thank you, Faye. Any other questions? So I think there's no further question, Faye. Thank you so much. It's such a pleasure to hear from you. And thank you so much for all the insights, all the data points, statistics. It's been wonderful. Thank you so much. Enjoy your weekend. Thank you.
Thank you. Take care.
So, Meena, who's next?
Yeah. So the next we can go with the next speaker, and it is
Anupriya.
Yeah, Mr. Anupriya. That's right.
So, Anu, can you hear us?
I sure can. Can you hear me? Okay.
Yes, we can hear you. We can hear you. Thank you, Anu.
Awesome.
I know there is small confusion around what time you were supposed to speak, and I apologize for the confusion. So sorry about it.
No worries.
So let me quickly introduce Anu, and then Anu will take it from there. I've known Anu for the last almost 10 years. We kind of help kids on building robotic projects. So that's how I got involved on this process. So the kids, Anu's going to speak more about that, like, how she was helping kids in terms of like, putting a team together, coming up with innovative ideas, raising funds, and taking them all the way to international competition. So that's what she was doing. So that's how I got connected. But she has a real passion for technology, especially some of this emerging technology on artificial intelligence and also other technology on clouds. So she recently took a position in Unisys as a vice president. She's the vice president for cloud technologies and enablement for artificial intelligence. So she has a mix of both. She could talk about how cloud could help in terms of finding employment or entrepreneurial for women. And she can also connect the dots back to artificial intelligence. Correct? She's doing both. So I thought it would be good to hear from Anu on her practical experience as a vice president, how she's running and managing this practice, and how she's basically growing this practice. It's just not coming and being a vice president, correct? So he also has the corporate responsibility to grow this business. So how is he doing? So let's get to hear from her. And I thought we could invite her to talk to her. So Anu, thank you for accepting our invite and coming and talking to us. It's been a lot of things for us to learn from you. So let us go for you. Please feel free to take it from here. And any questions the audience have, please answer them. Thank you. Take it.
Jyoti, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Sure. And I wanted to say, first of all, a big thank you to you and the Bay Area Tamil Mandram, Meena and the team for a tremendous job, and the multiple Tamil Mandrams involved in putting this together. Sacramento Tamil Mandram, I know, is involved as well. I wish I could do this whole presentation in Tamil. That would be a dream to do someday. But because I understand there's lots of folks in here, I'll stick to English, but we will do this in Tamil too. Yes. And the most impressive thing for me, just watching, I was hearing Preeti speak and Faye speak, and it's amazing also with the audience to have so many women interested in AI and entrepreneurship. It is just, it's just so refreshing. So thank you, Jyoti. Thank you, Bay Area Tamil Mandram, and everybody else who brought this together. Jyoti was talking about how we got connected. Jyoti was a mentor for one of the teams my daughter is part of this team, and that's how I got started with first robotics. And every year you have to come up with an innovative project, and sometimes the kids would struggle, and we brought in Jyoti to help the kids kind of brainstorm and innovate and think about AI and how they could bring that to robotics. I think one year the challenge was how do you solve the problems that the human race is facing surviving on other planets, and Jyoti worked with the kids to come up with an amazing idea about how you can solve muscle atrophy in space using AI with a self-learning device that kind of adapts to an astronaut and ensures that they get the right amount of electromuscular stimulation so their muscles don't atrophy. So some amazing journeys that the kids that I've been associated with coaching I'm one of the co-coaches in the team, and it's amazing what they have learned from Jyoti and what I've been able to learn. And my AI journey actually started there. So I would have to give credit to my daughter and the kids in the team for starting my AI journey. And in terms of my cloud journey and how these two things come together, which is what I wanted to share with this group today, I started working in the cloud space about 12-ish years ago, spent about 23 years with HP, and then moved on to DXC to found and start up a lot of their cloud practices, and now with Unisys, as was mentioned. So when I started this cloud journey, it was with creating HP software products in the cloud space, then on to running a public cloud, doing the engineering, leading up engineering for it, and then now to working with clients globally, setting up, getting them on the cloud journey, getting them accelerating their cloud journeys. And as part of that, we see a big trend emerging. And this is what I wanted to share with this group here, which is both cloud and AI are powerful disruptors. The trend with cloud is that it is about a $200 billion industry today, just on the public cloud side. And that is predicted by Gartner to grow up to $500 billion in just by 2023. And you combine that with another disruptor, which is AI, which is now about a $24 billion industry, and it's supposed to go to 77 billion by 2022. So just look at the two trends and look at the amazing growth that's predicted. And the thing that I wanted to call out is that there is a convergence, there's an intersection, and both of these actually feed off of each other, because Gartner just published a Magic Quadrant around AI services, especially around those that are available as an API. And guess who are the leaders in that space? The three leaders are the major three cloud providers, AWS, Azure, and Google. So what these providers have done is essentially they brought down the barrier of entry to adopting cloud AI. So, for AI, you need, as Preeti shared, as Jyoti shared, you need enormous amounts of data. You need your big iron machines to go train with that data. You need the modeling. What if all of this was given to you in a way that you could consume it just using cloud services? That's what these the cloud providers have now enabled for you. So they essentially brought that entire barrier of entry down. And how do you use this? So I think I really liked Faye's presentation on the healthcare, and then I think Preeti had a really great chart with all the with a lot of the key AI startups as well. And just to build on that, right, with cloud and AI, we're seeing these trends. So one trend that I will pick on is better customer experiences. The whole idea of chatbots and using customer history, using customer interaction history to better shape customer experiences. That's a space where we see a lot of movement happening. And then the whole space of innovation, right? Being able to test assumptions, being able to quickly predict stuff, being able to say which one of your drugs is going to work better. We see entire industries based on the clients that we work with adopting AI for those purposes. And then the operational efficiencies is huge, right? So think of IoT devices. Think about for example, travel and transportation, and being able to maintain some of those devices, whether it's connected cars or connected buses or public transport, being able to predict maintenance, being able to do preventive maintenance. So taking this whole maintenance cycle from being reactive to being able to be proactive and predictive, I think we see a huge change happening. And how does the, again, tying it back to what I was telling you with this powerful trend with cloud and AI, how does that come together, right? So in many of these cases, it's underpinned with data, right? So you need huge amounts of data, and the more data, the better. And sometimes the data sources can be pretty diverse, right? So look at the systems that the police are putting together for predictive policing. They are using social media feeds. So, and just think about the enormous data that's out there in the social media and being able to tap into that, right? And then being able to store that. And so that's where the right cloud services for data ingest, storage, and then being able to analyze it. And then you've got your traditional analysis that you do, right? Your batch processing that you could do. And then you've got all your machine learning APIs. Jyoti, I was listening in on his morning session, and he mentioned AWS SageMaker. It's a game changer, right? Because you do not have to be an AI modeling expert. You just, you have a set of data which you believe is representative of the problem that you're trying to solve. And with AWS SageMaker, the system itself, the service itself, helps you try out a couple of models and then pick which one works best. So in a way, again, it's simplification, reducing that bar for entry and making it easy to consume so that you don't need a modeling expert in there. So that's where the cloud services are really helping. I'll give you a story from my public sector experience. Like I said, in my current job, we work with clients globally, and some of them are public sector clients. So when this COVID stuck, a lot of these agencies got flooded with calls. Just think about the Department of Labor, the number of unemployment claims coming in, and traditional systems of just picking up the phone and answering those calls. How much can they do? So they couldn't keep up. So we were able to quickly spin up AI-enabled chatbots, and these took a matter of days to put the first cut together. And that's because of the pre-canned API services that are available to quickly spin this up. And you could continue to build on them with more Q&A in the back end of it. But just getting started, the barrier to entry is so easy. There's really no barrier to entry. And there's two ways to approach most of these problems. So sometimes you know how you want to solve something. So you've got a top-down approach, right? So you've got a theory, you've got a hypothesis, and you want to just test it with the data, get your model to learn it, and then and do better with it. The other way is sometimes you have no clue, right? So you know AI is being used today to try out various hypotheses with the COVID scenarios, right? So how does it work across different age groups? How does it work across different geographies? You do not know. It's a categorization problem. And Jyoti was explaining that in the morning, right? So the different kinds of problems, and there you might not have a hypothesis. So it's kind of a bottom-up approach wherein your actual AI system then helps you formulate that theory. And there's also the thing about something has happened and then doing the diagnostic around it. A typical example is when we run these large operational systems and security ops, and so when a threat happens, when it's happened, being able to then find the root cause for it, right? So say if being able to figure out if there is something that goes unavailable, being able to track it down to a root cause, that's diagnostics, right? And that there is learning to be able to do that as well to help operators. But the real power comes when you can predict it and in advance, where you can say, in 24 hours, we believe that there's going to be a critical incident, and that's because of these reasons. And if you did this, we can actually prevent that. So that's almost like the, if you've seen the movie Minority Report, it's almost like that. And it's happening. The systems are being put in place where big operational incidents can be predicted in advance and hopefully prevented from happening as well. Any questions so far?
No question, Anna. It's wonderful. I would say, like, it's kind of mixed both. So like what you brought to the table, one side you have cloud infrastructure where you have a predefined set of APIs and things that where someone no need to learn on the machine learning side or data science or anything on the artificial intelligence. Correct. So how do I leverage my existing data skills or any other skills on this kind of rapid deployment or rapid development? So you brought to a point saying that there are 3 different APIs, there are 3 different tools that's available. Without knowing much about statistics, mathematics, and AI, I could build models, I can train model, I can test model, deploy model. So that's very powerful. Thank you.
Absolutely. And that was a great summary, Jyoti. And I think you asked the right question there about, okay, I am an existing data scientist. How do I make myself more powerful and more valuable? And I think there was a question in the chat about also that I thought was very interesting, which was, I can get all this theory about AI. I can go take how do I actually make myself valuable as an employer to an employer, right? So how do I get the practical insight? So I would say the cloud space gives you a great place to get started. Go get yourself a cloud account. Whether it's on AWS or Google, make your pick. Really, all of them have really strong capabilities in this space. And then if you are, say, a data engineer, as Jyoti was pointing out, you can go experiment with the data in services for data lakes that are available on any one of those cloud providers. If you are an existing security engineer and you're trying to go into this space, go look at how you could become a cloud security expert, because a lot of this data would have to get cleaned out, right? If there's PII data, Faye talked about healthcare, right? So when they do this analysis, they have to make sure that they're being very respectful about privacy. So a lot of the data has to be stripped out and cleaned, and PII data has to be taken out. Think about GDPR on where the data resides is important, right? So if you are a security engineer, again, bringing in cloud security, if you pick up the skills, you become super valuable. And similarly on the AI, cloud AI side, like I said, the barrier for entry is very, you don't have to be, it's very low. You don't have to be a neural network expert, right? You learn about, you've got AutoML on the Google side, you've got AWS SageMaker. So you go figure out, using those systems, what are the best models that work with your data, right? So as long as you understand the business case and as long as you use these cloud services, you are able to figure it out without being an ML expert in there, using these pre-canned services. So if you have these skills, if you already are a data engineer or if already are an AI engineer, just combining it with these cloud skills will make you super, super valuable. And this is, again, just a brief foray into what is AWS, just an example into what does AWS bring to the table. We've talked about SageMaker, which will help you.
So actually, there was a question. One of the participants, I don't know the name. So she was asking which cloud is better or something of that kind. Like you have AWS, you have Google Cloud, you have a Microsoft Azure, right? So do you have any preference, or what would you recommend for these people to go and learn some of these tools?
Great question. And we're seeing a couple of trends. So it really depends on which market you want to break into. So if you are in the say small medium business, and of course AWS is the market leader as well with more than 40% share. So especially if you're on the small medium business side businesses, if you're targeting them, AWS is your best bet. And as per Gartner, they rank them as the highest in terms of having cloud AI capabilities. Google is another great place to start with cloud AI because they've also got some really advanced capabilities, especially with their AutoML capabilities, and they're continuously adding to them as well. So I would say if you're especially interested in cloud AI, go with AWS or Google. With the Azure side of the house, we see that being adopted by more mature enterprises. Think about public sector agencies, think about large enterprises, especially large window shops. There's a tendency to adopt Azure. So if you are part of one of those that's already made a big bet, say on the Windows side of the house, then Azure might be a good bet for you. But all three of them are in the leaders quadrant. AWS is rated highest. Google has got some niche capabilities. So based on your use case, you might want to go with one of those two. And again, it's not only on the AI APIs, like for example, AWS SageMaker to auto create those models for you, to pick the right model for you. It's also the entire ecosystem that these cloud services simplify for you. We talked about the data ingest, right? There's a service called AWS Glue, which helps you do these extracts of the data really easily. There is Amazon Athena service, which if you have the data stored in Amazon in buckets, as they call it S3 buckets, you can use the Athena service to query it just like you would query any database. This morning, I think Jyoti was talking about select star kind of queries, right? Those kind of queries can be run using with Amazon Athena against an S3 bucket. So they're almost making all of your data lakes or all of your storage buckets look like databases for you, so that you could use the familiar queries that you've done with for years.
Sure. So this is an interesting topic. I have a question for the audience, so they can think about it and answer whenever they have time. So I'm sure most of you already worked on data warehouse or business intelligence. So think, what's the difference between a data lake and a data warehouse and a business intelligence, correct? It has a lot of insights when you want to come learn for artificial intelligence, correct? So consider the points, what is data lake and how it is different compared to your traditional software development, where you have seen data warehousing business intelligence, correct? Typically, we have seen data warehouse business intelligence. Now there is a new term, what Anu is talking about, data lakes. What does that mean? How it connects to AI? Think about that.
Absolutely. That's a great question. And I think, Jyoti, related to that question around which one, right? Like I said, AWS or Google would be my top picks if they are the cloud AI space. And I really like the way Google is trending with some of the, adding on to some of the areas where they have some unique differentiators, like Cloud Vision is a service from Google. And that is, Google has got some really great technology around being able to classify images, right? Categorize images, being able to recognize images. If you ever use Google Photos, if you tag one photo of your friend, it'll find all those other photos of your friend, right? So they've got some neat IP in that space, and there's a lot of business things you could do with image classification. So being able to recognize images, right? So that's a great service from them. Another service that's actually in beta, but they're investing a lot into, is the recommendation AI. Which is right, and this one is neat because if you go on to Amazon, which all of us spend too much time on these days, typically it'll tell you people that look for this product also looked at these other products or bought these products. Or if you go on to Netflix, they use recommendations AI. They use this recommendation quite a bit, right? They say, hey, if you're looking at this movie, or if you watched this movie 2 weeks ago, you might be interested in this, or you might be interested in this TV series. So that's all recommendation. I mean, changing that customer experience for you, helping you make those choices so you buy more from them, you consume more from them. And Google is investing hugely in that space with that recommendation AI. So if you are in that retail industry, right? So it depends on your industry. And if you're looking at how do I bring AI in, I would definitely keep a lookout for that recommendations AI. Bottom line, I think Jyoti was saying, I mean, the data warehouses to data lakes today, the cloud makes it easy for you to set up those data lakes. It makes it easy for you to spin up AI services, use AWS SageMaker or ML to auto-select your AI models, but make sure you have the right security guardrails, right? You've also heard about the big data breaches, Capital One, because of an S3 bucket that was left open. There was a big breach at one of the big hotel chains. All of them because of just simple things in their cloud configuration. So getting your security guardrails, especially when you put this data in there, is key as well. So while you go on to create those data lakes and build AI on top of them, don't forget about your security angle. And the path, the call to action is invest time to actually understand your business use case, right? What do you really want to do? Do you want to give product recommendations? Do you want to improve operational efficiency? What is really your use case? That's where you should start. That's where you should spend a lot of time brainstorming, and then acquire the skills, or you can partner. The cloud providers themselves have a lot of data labs, and there's lots of companies, including DeepSphere AI, that you could partner with to innovate and realize their outcomes, right? And then another angle there is people get concerned about AI because they always think about the self-driving cars and they think about a fully automated system, but you could do it in a phased approach, right? So the system could come up with recommendations that you could validate then. So your phased approach then reduces your risk. And then always make sure you lead with security, ethics, and privacy, because if you get those wrong, then it could be very, very costly for your business. And for the people that are looking to get started, don't be afraid to, even if you've never done cloud before, go set up your first Amazon account, your first Google account, go get certified. There's tons of coursework out there. There's a cloud data engineer course from Google that I would highly recommend. Tons of material on Coursera. DeepSphere has got some courses. So go equip yourself with those. And then I think there was one person who asked that question about how do I get those hands-on skills? Cloud AI, it's the barrier to entry is very, very low. Go experiment. Go try out what you want to see. And that's all I wanted to share with you.
Thanks, Anu. Does anyone have any other questions? Any questions? All right, no questions. So thank you, Anu. Such a wonderful session. It kind of connected all the dots. So we have been talking about AI and we had different speakers come and talk about different topics. Yours kind of connected all the dots, like, so how a cloud infrastructure plays a key role. I told them one of the key skill to become an AI subject matter resource. Okay? If you wanted to be in a subject matter resource working in artificial intelligence, there are certain key skills that are required. Cloud is one of them, because nowadays most of the infrastructures on cloud, whether it's a data infrastructure or AI infrastructures on cloud. So your session gave a lot of insights, where can they start and how they can go and what the resource available, how these resources could be deployed and etc. It was very insightful. Thank you so much. I know it's Sunday, so you took some time off and come and join with us. We really appreciate your time and thank you so much for the time.
Thank you, Jyoti. Thank you, Barry.
There's a question. They're asking about.
Yeah, there's a question in the Q&A.
Yes, I think they're talking about the courses on Udemy, Udreka. I would say yes. There is, for Google Cloud, I especially like Coursera with AWS. I think Cloud Guru is the best. So for different cloud technologies, there's always like the best out there, but all of them I think are pretty decent. So like Udemy's got some pretty decent courses out there. And then of course, Jyoti, I know you run several training programs as well, so you would be happy to share as well.
Sure. So my thoughts on this one, actually, it's all based on the audience objective, correct? Like, the objective is get to know information. These courses are really helpful, correct? Whether it's a course where our Udacity or like, Udemy, any of these courses would definitely help. There's no question, correct? You will understand the flow of information. But if the focus is getting to be hands-on, I would suggest what you said, correct? Create an account in AWS, create an account in Google Cloud. It doesn't matter whose it is, correct? At the end of the day, it's the skill what matters, correct? How much skill is gained, correct? The skill is what matters. Of course, each vendor has their own market share. Each vendor has their own way of offering some products and services. But what you are focused on, you are not focused on a specific vendor. You are focused on a technological skill which goes across the board, correct? So I would say if the focus for the audience is get to know first level information, so these courses on Udacity, Coursera would help. If the focus is going to get hands-on, I want to begin a cloud certified solution architect, then that's a different approach. And that approach, I would recommend what Anu said, go ahead, register either in AWS or at Google. They will give 1 or 2 months free account. That would be sufficient for you to become an expert. Right? But keep in mind, nothing is easy. It's not a cakewalk. It's not a cakewalk. It all needs tremendous effort. It all needs hard work, commitment, passion. Correct? That's what does. Okay. So that's my response. Thank you.
Yes, and definitely, Jyoti, I don't want to oversimplify it. But I want to encourage more folks to go try it out. It does.
Of course.
Yes, especially picking. Getting your model right, making sure you've got enough training data. All of those, I think, are still very, very tough challenges.
There's one more question on the question and answer. Can you check that out?
Share some tips to be successful in the field of data science from someone who is 2020 graduate in data science. That's the
I'm sorry, what is the question, Meena? Can you read?
Can you share some tips to be successful in the field of data science for someone who is 2020 graduate in data science?
So I told in the morning itself, correct? Like, what I told in the morning. Anu, feel free to jump in. So my response to these kind of questions, correct? If they're from a good school, let's say someone is graduating from UC Berkeley. I'm just giving a hypothetical example. So the university system built in such a way, you will find companies to where they can observe you, correct? That is the best way to transition from academic into industry, correct? So whether it's a startup company, a smaller company, that's the best way. So what exactly that means? Look for internship, write papers, write articles, publish yourself in social media, correct? As I told you, I never came with all these things, correct? I wrote a lot of things, correct? So that made me more exposed to the market. People got to know me. Even if you're a student, it doesn't matter. Whatever you think, whatever you feel, write about it. Okay, that's one way to create an identity for yourself. Second, approach companies for internship. So all these companies, I would say confidently, whether it's a VMware or Google or whatever company, Kaiser, they all have some form of this practice. Which practice? Data science, AI, innovation, digital, all these terms they're using. So they have some practice. Approach them for an internship. That is the best way to transition from an academic into industry. The other option, go for higher studies. Let's say you are in some UCs. Now I want to go for higher studies or research in Stanford or MIT, correct? Because I was teaching the course at MIT and I also working at the Harvard labs, correct? I can see what the students are doing. So those institutions have much more exposure to different ideas, innovations. So you can expose there. So it depends on the objective. The objective is land a job. Option 1, approach for internship. Option 2, write and exposure yourself to the market. That means you create your own identity. So people know you are coming from campus. They're not expecting you to have huge amount of experience, right? So they know you are a fresh graduate. They know you don't have industry experience. So it's a positioning yourself, making the hiring manager to convince you are the right person. That is a simple job compared to an experienced professional. So if you don't want to go that path, if you want to go for a higher studies, I want to go for either Stanford, Harvard, some of these Ivy League school, that would be a second option where you have much more broader view on some of these things, okay? Where you can get absorbed. So that's how I would approach as a student. Any questions? Anu, would you like to say anything?
No, I think you covered that really well, Jyoti, and I think there's I think related to that, I think there's a question on data mining versus data science, and I think
sure.
data.
I can tackle that question.
Yeah,
go. So check this company called Celonis. So so they do process mining, which is heavily dependent on data mining. So data mining may or may not apply science. As I told you, by definition, data science is nothing but applying science on data. What kind of science you are applying? The models that we are talking about, such as decision tree, random forest, logistic regression, linear regression, neural net. So these are all statistical data analysis technique. You apply such technique on data. That is why it's called data science. Okay. So why does it call science? So these discipline, statistics and mathematics, not part of engineering. It falls under science and humanities. You combine science with the data, it becomes a data science. Second to consider, it's a research. There is no clearly defined hypothesis or an answer to problems. You analyze data, you do different set of data, arrive a state, correct? So I have customer recommendation. How do I arrive an ideal customer recommendation? I'm going to try with a different type of information. Customer purchase history, customer transactions, customer behavior pattern, customer likes and feedbacks, correct? I don't know which one is going to be best fit for me to arrive what product the customer recommends. So that's a scientific research approach. So that is why it's called data science. Data mining, what happened, why it happened, where it happened, how it happened, you keep mining, correct? You may or may not apply science. Okay, you may or may not apply science. So that is more for trying to understand hidden insights on data. So there are two different approaches. So data mining, I would say more of a traditional approach. Data science, it's more of a scientific approach on data, applying science on data, extracting hidden insights. It's just not only prediction, okay? Something is hidden inside. I don't know what it is. I want to extract that. How do we extract? I'm going to apply statistical modeling. Why? As a human, you have a limitation. You won't be able to go deeper. You won't be able to work in large data sets. If I give you a YouTube video along with Siebel CRM data, do you know how to connect these two? Or do you know how to extract insight? Answer is no. Okay, so that is where data science comes into picture. So we can talk more. So feel free to call me. I'm in LinkedIn. Connect with me. We'll take it from there. I am interested in these kind of topics. I do teach these topics as well. So please feel free to reach out to me. Any other questions, Meena?
I think that's about it from the chat window. There are actually, okay, I think someone from the panelists has answered the question. Yes, yeah.
Can I ask one question? So you said that to identify oneself, they have to write articles for fresh candidates. But if someone is planning to do a career transition to AI, and if they are in some other field,
Sure.
how should they fill in the gap?
So,
How should they
yeah,
project themselves? Yeah,
definitely,
thanks.
Uma. So what we talked in the morning, so let me go back actually. So give me 1 minute, I'm just going to share my screen. So what we talked in the morning, if you look at, see, career transition is not a magic number, correct? So I do this, I'll get there, correct? It is not like that. So what we talked in the morning, I'm just trying to see the slide, 1 second. So we have to look at what we have, what we are, where we are, and then we can go from there. So it doesn't matter what you want to do, whether you want to do cloud or whatever it is. At the end of the day, if you want to get involved in AI, there are two key focus. How do you build model pipeline, data pipeline at the technical level? So that involves a lot more things. We talked about these things, okay? So where we kind of looked at, so what's the traditional software engineering kind of roles, right? You see what your role current role is. Let's say you're a manager. At that level, you don't want to go and get into data engineering where you can write Python data frame, Python, like, NumPy arrays, and then using Kafka, all these complex technologies, that's going to take ages. Correct? I'm not discouraging. I'm not saying it's not possible. That may not be a right approach. The approach would be, if you're already working as a manager, learn this type of skills what we discussed. Correct? So what kind of skills to discuss? Understand certain business functions. Okay, you can see all the speakers who spoke in the morning, kind till down. They're focused more on business. They're focused more on convincing customers, kind not heavy into technology. Kind. So business plays a key role. So if you are trying to transition from a project manager of current software engineering into an AI space, how do we do? Kind. So I'm currently here as a software manager, kind as a systems manager, somewhere here. I want to transition to an AI side, and a manager as supervisor. If such, what kind of skill I need, okay? So that's what we talked about. I absolutely recommend learn certain business skills. Depends on the industry, what you want to do. Understand the concept. It's really the key, okay? I would say confidently, all the speakers who spoke, they might not be hands-on, but they're well versed with the concepts, okay? They understand what's model training. They understand model testing, model outcomes, okay? They understood all the concepts really well. I think that's one of the key. So what that will do, that will help you to speak well in an interview. That will help you to speak confidently in front of some audience, okay? So concept is important. Second, if you look at Anu, correct? She may not be a hands-on person, but at the same token, she was talking tools such as Cope well organized, correct? So how does an S3 bucket is working? And where does the S3 bucket is going to come into picture? How does data lake is connected to an S3 bucket, correct? So all this technology, how it's working, getting an architecture, I would say the top 3 is your number 1 choice, okay? Maybe set yourself a time for 3 months, 4 months, 6 months, depends on your commitment, family, situation, etc. So within 6 months, I want to transition from a traditional software engineering project manager into a project manager who could manage AI projects, who could manage AI initiatives. If that's your goal, and these are the skills you should focus on. And nothing stops you to write an article. Trust me, writing an article, my passion. I write an article, I publish an article, I'm writing a book, I'm publishing a book, right? Why? So that is how my identity people got to know who am I, what I have done, correct? I don't have to go on interview process. I need a job, correct? So all things happens to me just because things that what I do outside of my owning things, correct? So that takes care. So going back to your question, if you are already working in an organization, or you are doing certain type of like consulting job, it doesn't matter what it is. So if you want to transition into similar jobs in artificial intelligence space, data science, digital transformation, so what are the key skills I need? I would suggest focus on getting to know certain industry really well. Second, understand the concepts. Third, understand some of those technology which is involved. Depends on where you want it to be. If it's cloud, focus on cloud. If it's AI, focus on AI. So that's my take. Any questions?
So you
Yeah.
spoke, sorry.
Yeah,
Yes.
so just one more follow-up question on that. So whenever we look for a job, they specifically for this related positions, they ask for a computer engineering degree or mathematics or statistics degree. So how do we overcome that? So whatever you said and how the way we publish ourselves will help to overcome that, or?
Sure. So as I said in the morning, I don't think Preeti had PhD. I don't think Faye had PhD. I don't think Anu has a PhD. I don't think I myself has a PhD. I don't have any interest to go to PhDs. Kind, I'm tired.
But I think you all have computer engineering degree, which I do not have. So I'm just wondering how
Sure.
to do
Yeah,
that.
I'm coming there. I'm coming there. Correct. So how do we overcome such requirements? Correct. If somebody says you have to have a PhD, you have to have this and that, correct? I do agree, correct? Like, this is not black and white, correct? Like, we can't simply say no PhD. We can't say no computer science. It all depends on the requirement. It all depends on how the company sees. It all depends on the hiring manager and etc. Correct? So in that context, how do we overcome this barrier? I don't have a computer science degree, correct? Right now, what you're seeing, the market is not highly mature. Okay, when I say highly mature, not too many companies are building large-scale enterprise AI transformation, such as implementing robotic process automation, not implementing tools like RPA, tools like UiPath, tools like Blue Prism. Those tools are a different path. So taking a process and implementing, that's pretty large scale. So industry will come to that level very soon. Very soon, I can tell my view, but I don't know whether that's true or not. My gut feeling in max 2, 3, 5 years, okay, you will see a complete trend in software engineering, complete trend in how we build applications. Correct? As I said, the current education system teaches a student become a human intelligence. That's absolutely wrong. It has to be changed to an artificial intelligence, correct? You teach the students so the student can create intelligence artificially. So that stage we have not reached yet, okay? It will happen. When it will happen, whether it's computer science or a BA economics or a MSc, doesn't matter, it will happen. So my response to your question, time will teach us, time will tell us, just wait for it. But until then, learn and be a good subject matter expert who can understand all the things. Yeah, but it will happen. Take my word, some point in your life, you realize, you let me know, you call me or text me, you tell me, it happens. It will happen.
Sure, thanks for the confidence.
No problem. So Deepthi, you have a question, correct?
Yeah, so you spoke about writing an article or a blog. So for example, personally for me, I just graduated from the university, and I have worked on some projects, but I
Sure.
have seen similar projects article online already.
Sure.
So in this case, like what kind of article can I write, or how can I explore there?
Sure. So as a fresher, correct, like, because you have not worked in industry, you are just coming out from fresh graduate as a student from a college, university. So in that context, I would say it doesn't matter what others wrote, you write yourself, it will evolve. Okay. What happens when you write? It makes you to think, it makes you to do some research, correct? Let's take an example. I'm asking you to write an article using TensorFlow extension. Using TensorFlow extension, how do you detect the gender? How do you identify facials recognition, correct? How does a patient facial recognition is detected, correct? So that is basically the underlying problem I'm giving to you. So when a patient comes to an hospital in front of a doctor, the doctor don't have to do anything. The machine understands the behavior of the patient based on a facial expression. So can you take this one of the problem, write an article, how do you implement from start to finish? So can you do that? If you are looking for a problem to be written, I have ton, and I need people, I can give it to you. So you
Yeah,
make the call.
yeah, sure.
All right. Any other questions?
So I'll get in touch with you via LinkedIn for such
Sure.
questions, and
Sure.
then I can explore about it. Thank you so much.
No problem, Diti. I want you to be very successful. Okay. So don't worry. We are all here to help you. So feel free to reach out at any time. Teaching is my passion. I absolutely committed to help you out. Okay.
Thank you.
No problem.
Jyoti, there is one question in the Q&A. Abhirami Praveen Kumar, what is your view in AutoStar in self-driving cars AI?
So I'm not clear on what is my view on self-driving car.
AutoSAR in self-driving cars. Could you just look into the Q&A, please?
Sure. 1 second. What is your view? I have no idea at this point. Yeah, I had to do some research. I don't want to tell something which I'm not sure. I have to spend some time and understand this one. Actually, maybe you can connect with me offline. We can discuss further. I'm not saying no, but I need some time to analyze this. All right. Any other questions?
Yes, I just had a quick one for you.
Sure.
I've taken a sabbatical for a couple of years almost now, so everybody wants people with experience
So
or people
anybody,
who want pressures.
your voice is breaking. I see there's a question posted here. If anybody interested in article, okay, and I'm also hiring interns not here, back in India. I already hired 10 people. Okay, it's a paid engagement. So our product is intelligent LMS, personalized learning, personalized assessments. So that is one of the product. So we launched the product. It's already in market. I'm also hiring interns not in the United States, in India. Okay, so if you are looking for writing an article, ideas, or anything you wanted to do in artificial intelligence, I need a small use case. I can share all of those. Not a problem. Okay, not a problem. So that includes problem statement and also training data, test data, model, code block, whatever you need, it's there. Sky is the limit. What I expect from you, be sincere and work very hard. Okay, don't be lazy. So those are the keys. All right. How to restart if we have taken a for New Year's? Everyone wants to, fresh graduates or people who have experience. So Meena, maybe again.
Jyoti, people in the YouTube are also watching. So if you can read, we can read out the question so that they'll understand what you're trying to answer.
Sure. So there is a question, how to restart if we have taken sabbatical for a few years. Everyone wants the fresh graduates or people who have experience. So if I understand, correct? So someone took off from their work, correct? Like, so they went on, do something different. Now they want to come back. So under such situation, how do we go back to the space of AI, correct? So what is that I have to be doing so that I can get back to my job or I can get back to my employment? Okay, I think that's the question. So are you planning to hire in US to likewise in India? Answer is no, Vijay Lakshmi. At the moment, I'm not. We can't afford to hire in the US. Okay, so we have limited budget to work on. So I don't have a way to hire people here in the US. But in India, definitely. If somebody's good, whoever meets my expectation, I'm hiring right now. So I'm onboarding 6 people next week, correct? So you can check our website, deepsphere.ai. We posted interns. So it is there, but it's only for in India market. So going back to the question I was asked, actually, I took off. Now I want to come back. So what is my starting point, correct? Again, it goes back to the same thing. So you have to pick what's your comfort zone, correct? Whatever you worked in the past, if you worked as a project manager, if you worked as a data architect, if you worked as a data engineer, whatever you worked on, so find the relevant area, get yourself comfortable. And then the next step is, once you're comfortable, build a resume. Of course, there are certain things we have to do in a resume. So that time you contact me, I'll help you out. Right? So I don't have a magical answer saying that do this, you'll get there. So if I say I'm lying to you, okay, I'm not true to you. It is not an easy journey, but it's a journey. Will take some time to get there. It is workable. It is workable. It is not something that like dead end. So it's possible. So if you took a break, if you want to come back and start all over again, that's fine, no problem. So pick an area where you want to be and try to get to know that better. Once you understand that, well, then build a resume, then we'll go from there. All right, any other questions? Okay.
So you're all allowed to unmute yourself and then ask. So if you can, if you want to ask anything, you can feel free to unmute yourself.
So artificial intelligence includes a lot of writing or programming or a combination of both. How does it work?
So it depends on the role. I would say on the surface, it requires both. Okay. When you say, like, take an example, Preeti, I believe she's a manager. Take an example, Anu, she's a vice president. If you are going in that level of role, answer is no. I don't think that you're expected to code, write any programs. So if you are going for roles lower than a manager or someone like in a software engineer in a traditional world, in the AI space, could be a scientist, could be a modeler, could be an AI engineer or a data engineer. If you are going in that kind of role, answer is yes. So one of the participants asked me in the morning, I believe it's Geeta or something. She asked me, can I use the traditional ETL tool? Answer is no. I don't use a traditional ETL tool, but instead of that, I use different tools. What kind of tool I use for ETL? Extract, transform, load. So if you know what is extract, transform, load, how do you collect data from multiple sources? How do you load them into a centralized data lake? And how do we make the data available for the model to run? In that context, I don't use traditional ETL tool. So what tool I use? I use Python. In Python, what I use, Pandas, NumPy, Kafka, like some of those AWS services. Okay? So why? Those are all cloud services readily available. So point is, you have to learn some of these new tools. Without knowing these tools, it would be difficult to go and look for a job. So that's how I see this one. Any other questions?
Jyoti, this is Kasturi. It's more from what we learned this morning in terms of machine learning and the supervised machine learning technique. So we used an example of transaction amount being 100. I'm just giving up that number. Sure. So what if the number is for another person, the number is like 150? If that's the case, as part of the learning process, should we provide that as a separate pattern, or won't that be recognized?
You don't have to provide the pattern. Like example, this is I actually picked from one of my client examples. Okay, I'm currently working on a client, so I picked from there. So basically what it is, it's a large service company. So what happened when the consultant go out and use the credit card, the company gets a credit card statement. That credit card has statement. It's not a one employee. It's about like close to 1 million employee minimum. There is no way an accountant sitting and doing all these things. It's just ridiculous. So how do we take the credit card statement, scan and detect which transactions are valid, which transactions not valid? So under the context, the model was trained based on 5-year worth of previous transactions. So within the 5-year worth of previous transaction, whatever transaction took place, 100, 200, 5,000, 10,000, the machine learns and understand the pattern. So answer to your question, you don't have to change anything. The model should learn and understand and should work. Okay? So if it is not, then the model validation will fail. When it failed, you analyze the model. Why it failed? It failed because it's not detecting 5,000. Then you can see what's in the history training data. The training data will dictate what model learns it. Okay? So that is how I would approach. First attempt, the model should work based on the data what you provide. It learns the pattern. You don't have to dictate anything. For some reason, whatever reason, the model is not predicting. How do we fix this one? That's what model analysis does. Correct? We talked in the morning. So the model analysis basically make you understand why it failed and how do you fix it. So
I see one more person.
Thank you.
Sure.
I don't see the name, but it says Zoom 03 ITA. You can
I
unmute.
don't know who that is. They keep asking a lot of questions. Even previous sessions also they asked the question. Faye
No,
asked me the question. Yes.
no, you. They can unmute themselves and ask the question. Okay, I'm not sure if they are able. Okay. So Bhargavi, you had some question. You can unmute yourself.
All right. So we'll close at 4:30. Let's wrap up this. To be honest, this may be the first session that I had so many questions. Correct. I was planning to cover a lot of topic. I couldn't even go anywhere. It's just all questions, but it's good though. Correct. It's good though. So you had all these things in your mind. You are trying to get some clarity. So you are able to get clarity. Maybe we can organize a separate session, a one-day session to cover all the topic that which I was planning to cover, which would be very useful for you to understand how does it really works in the real world, correct? So today's the use case that I was trying to talk about, time series data analysis, correct? It's a planning, budgeting, forecasting tool, okay? So it's how does using artificial intelligence, how you build planning, how you build budgeting and forecasting, correct? It's a real example that I was done for a client. So I was trying to walk you through from the problem statement all the way to an implementation, correct? So from the problem statement all the way to an implementation, correct? So you see this one, real world. This is a problem statement, correct? So starting from here, I was going through everything. Okay. So,
I think you're not sharing your screen, Jyoti.
oh, my screen is not shared?
Yeah.
Okay. Anyway, sorry about that.
Jyoti, we are open for next Saturday if you're available, okay?
Yeah.
I have to check, sir.
Yeah. I mean, based on your availability, okay?
Sure.
Or at least if you could record, we can also watch the recording. Anything
Sure.
should be fine. We don't want to miss all the topics that you wanted to cover.
Yeah, that's fine actually. Like, it happens, but in a way, it's good also, correct? Like, at least I'm happy that I was able to answer most of your question. May not be all the questions, most of the questions, but I'm sure there's a lot to talk about. There's a lot to discuss this one actually. So don't worry, we will get there. So this is what I was talking about. How do we implement machine learning models to apply in planning, budgeting, forecasting, correct? So a company like, a large company like this, correct, who operates in a global scale, correct? So they have regions, country, they have regions, North America, country, state, and city, and they're selling this product, correct? Take an example, Lexmark. The Lexmark is a global company. They sell printers across the board. So such company, how they're doing planning, how they're doing budgeting, how they're forecasting without any accountant. Without any accountant, that's the key. See this one? So these tasks are done by an accountant. The accountant is the one doing the planning, budgeting, forecasting. Now I'm saying we no need others. We could do this by either using machine learning or a deep learning. And I listed all the implementation steps, step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, like this, correct? It's actual code block, okay, and a live demo. So anyway, so that would help you to connect all the dots. I really don't think that within this 30 minutes we can cover this one, but it's fine. Okay, any other questions? Any other questions? Yes.
Jyoti, I had one question. This is Bhargavi.
Yes, ma'am.
I was trying to install all the, the recommended tools that you had mentioned, but I encountered some issues while installing the, I forgot the name, the third one. So is there any steps where it tells,
yes. Yes, you can check in our website. So
okay.
Again, the other topic that I want to talk, data engineering, correct? This is one of the most highly valuable topic, correct? So this has huge content. I didn't even go there. How do you do distributed data processing, in-memory data processing, real-time data processing, working with various large data quality, correct? All this topic, I couldn't even go there.
I would be very much interested in this. If you're going to have any other session, please include me for that.
No problem, ma'am. So if you could go here, actually, there are lab guides we published, actually. So here you could see, like, how to set up the infrastructure. So this will give you all the tool that what you need. So here we can talk about installing Python, Jupyter Notebook, TensorFlow, Oracle, Anaconda, Scikit-learn. So this is a 100-page document. So it's in our website. You can see this one. So download Python. If you want to download Python, it takes you to download Python. Okay, so it's the Python download link is there. You can click and download. So I would suggest follow this link. It's on our website. So you can go our website here. So here you can see how do you set up your development infrastructure? This for Windows. If you're looking for a Mac, we can also provide this. So this setup includes Python, Jupyter Notebook, TensorFlow, Oracle, optional, Anaconda, Scikit-learn, SAP, Hadoop, etc.
Great. Thank you so much, Jyoti. This is what I was
No
looking for.
problem.
Thank
And Jyoti, there was a question in the chat asking for kids session. So I wanted to tell them, Jyoti did a two full day session for kids as well in July. And we have recorded that and we have published it in our YouTube channel. I have shared it in the chat window. So if anyone would like to look into it, you could use that link for the kids session as well.
Could you please tell us a little bit about your courses?
My courses are not ready yet. Like I said, I don't want to provide 10 among one, correct? Like, if I do something, I will do it in a full scale. So my programs are not ready yet, maybe in a month, because that's why my program is offered through this LMS, correct? Like as I was talking about. So this is a platform that we are offering. So we are still in the process of building this one. And this is fully built on AI. So this is the content what you're looking at, an assessment quizzes, correct knowledge assessment. So these are all not hard-coded things. These are all dynamically created questions based on your ability, based on your learning speed. The content for these questions and quizzes, assignment, learning material, all dynamically created. So we are still working on it. It's not fully ready yet.
Thank you.
No problem. All right.
There
so,
is one more
yes,
question, final question probably.
Sure.
And, as an extended information of one of the previously answered question, will you suggest AI for the beginners in software?
It is for everybody, whether you beginner or an experienced person, correct? At some point in time, the transition is going to happen. So what kind of transition we are talking about, correct? So whatever jobs we do, there will be some level of automation using artificial intelligence, whether it's a medical doctor, or it's a software engineer, or a quality system tester, or a mechanical engineer, or a civil engineer. It doesn't matter what we do. Some point in our life, AI will involve. Why? As we spoke about it, the number one driving factor, why we want to go artificial intelligence, increase productivity. As a human, we simply say, I'm sick, I'm tired, I have to go, I have to do, correct? That's bring down the productivity, which we don't want that to happen in a business circumstances. Second, what is the second reason we talked about in efficiency? So we as a human tend to make mistakes, not intentionally, but it happens. If it happens, it has a lot of consequences. So how do we avoid such things? So that is basically one of the reasons, correct? We as a human, while driving, we can type in a text message, correct, on a cell phone. But if a car drives by itself, the car doesn't drive a cell phone, correct? So it just drives by itself. So what does that mean? It's more efficient. The traffic is very controlled. The traffic flow is very manageable. So if it is not, if you're driving and texting cell phone, someone can come and hit you. You don't know what's happening in front of you. So these are all increasing the quality of the product and service what you're offering. It's more of an efficiency. So what I'm saying, artificial intelligence will be there anywhere, everywhere. So the opportunity are countless, okay, countless. Whether you are a fresher or an experienced professional, some point in time, you must have to get involved. Okay, so whenever that happens, you don't want to left alone. You prepare yourself. That's how this is all about. So the artificial intelligence, it's just not for engineers, doctors, fresh graduates. It's for all of us. Very simple.
Okay.
All right. Any other questions? Okay.
I don't have a question, but I just wanted to say this is Shalini here. Thanks, Jyoti. You've always been a great mentor. I remember doing a course and session from you like 12 years back, starting in business, SAP Business Warehouse, and of course I've moved on to HANA, and I'm looking forward. I got really motivated with the AI now. So thank you so much, and it's always been a great pleasure learning from you, and the way you teach is so motivating. Thank you.
Thank you, Shalini. Thank you, Shalini. I appreciate it. All right, it's my closing remark, correct? As I said, knowledge is the power, okay? I keep repeating the same thing, what I said. It doesn't matter how much money you have, who you know, what you have, it's all irrelevant, correct? These are all can come and go, okay? whether friends, family, okay, financials, connections, politics, all can come and go. The only thing can stay with you until we all die is knowledge. There is no substitute for that. Okay. So I would strongly encourage, focus on gaining knowledge and be very successful in artificial intelligence. I'm here to help you, whatever you can. Please feel free to reach out to me on the LinkedIn. Thank you so much. I wish you all the best. Good luck. Once again, thanks for the Bay Area Tamil Mandram making this happen. I truly appreciate. It's an inspirable, remarkable experience for me. Thank you very much. Bye.
Indu?
I think Shivagami, you can say a few words about this program, and then we will talk from EC. Yeah.
I have no words to say. Actually, I have to applaud or appreciate Bay Area Tamil Mandram for putting this show together for all the women. Not only in the United States, I think some people from India also logged into the session. So it's very empowering. It's insightful, inspiring, informative. I can keep on adding more adjectives. So the women team, hats off to you. Meena, Indu, Subha, Juliet. It's a tremendous job that you have pulled in. And the request for our Tamil Mandram is, for years to come on, we need to keep all these women empowerment and entrepreneurship workshops. It should not just end with this year. I think the demand for this program is very high. So we have set up a very high bar. So we have to keep on continuing these kind of women empowerment programs, especially in technology, so that all of the women can get to know what's happening in the real world. And thank you so much, Meena. So we are trying to organize some speaker sessions, and sometimes I mess up with the speaker schedule. So Meena is very accommodative. And even when I bug her at around 10:30 or 11 p.m., she's bubbling up with energy and she makes jokes. And I'm very glad to work with you. Thank you so much for the opportunity, Meena, and the Bay Area Tamil Mandram team. Thank you so much. And with regards to Mr. Jyoti's session, if I have to summarize it in one sentence, I would say it's full of practical knowledge. Nothing like it's not like a to Surakai. It's full of real world wisdom. And thank you so much, Mr. Jyoti, for.
Thank you, madam. I think that's what needed, correct? So all audience can go to YouTube, can go to Google, search and learn and everything. The missing puzzle was, how do we connect all these things, correct? I think that's really what I learned by teaching all the students and professionals, correct? So they really get to know what exactly it means in my life, in my job, in my future, in my business, correct? I think that was a missing puzzle. And that's the only reason I really stayed focused on at the beginning itself. I'm not going to be an academic side, but that may not be the right thing, correct? It has to be balanced. But I stayed more on, as you said, on the industry side. So I think that's really needed. Thank you very much, ma'am. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Sivagami, and thank you, Mr. Jyoti. Julie, do you want to say a few words?
Yeah, Jyoti எல்லாமே சொல்லிட்டாங்க. நான் கல்வி கற்றவருக்கு சென்ற இடமெல்லாம் சிறப்பு. அதனாலதான் நம்ம எல்லாம் அமெரிக்கால இருக்கிறோம். சோ நாலேஜ் தான் முக்கியம். அழகு போகும் வரும், போகும் பணம் போகும் வரும். நாலேஜ நம்ம நம்மளோட அறிவை வளர்த்துக்கிட்டதுனாலதான் கடல் கடந்து வந்திருக்கோம். இன்னும் அதை மேம்படுத்தணும். அதுக்காக ரொம்ப அழகான செஷன் இது. நான் ஜோதி பேசுனதும் சரி, நிறைய ஆண்டர்பிரினர்ஸ் நம்ம எந்த அளவுக்கு கிவ் அப் பண்ணாம ஒர்க் பண்ணணும்னு பேசுனது ரொம்ப பிடிச்சிருந்துச்சு. நன்றி. நம்மளோட இப்ப உங்க பேசினாங்களே, எனக்கு ஒரு செகண்ட்ல மறந்து.
சிவகாமி
பேரை எப்படி மறந்தேன்னு தெரியல. நம்ம ஊர் பொண்ணு எப்படி கலக்குது டெக்னாலஜிலன்னு பார்த்து அப்படியே ரொம்ப இம்ப்ரெஸ் ஆயிட்டேன். கெஸ்ட் ஸ்பீக்கர்ஸ், தொழிலதிபர்கள், அப்புறம் ஜோதி, அப்புறம் இந்த நிகழ்ச்சியை ஒருங்கிணைத்து கொடுத்த நம்மளோட ரமேஷ், இந்த மாதிரி சிங்க பெண்களுக்கு பின்னாடி நிறைய நம்மள சப்போர்ட் பண்ற ஆண்கள் இருக்கிறதுனாலதான் நம்ம இவ்வளவு சக்சஸ்ஃபுல்லா இருக்கிறோம் அப்படின்னு நம்ம எல்லாராலையும் உறுதியா சொல்ல முடியும். சான் பிரான்சிஸ்கோ வளைகுடா பகுதி தமிழ் மன்றம் சார்பாக உங்க எல்லாருக்கும் நிறைய நன்றியும் அன்பையும் ஜூலிட் சார்பிலையும் தமிழ் மன்றம் சார்பிலையும் தெரிவித்துக் கொள்கிறோம்.
கடைசியா ஒரு ரிக்வெஸ்ட் வீணா க்ளோஸ் பண்றதுக்கு முன்னாடி இதுக்கு வந்து ஒரு ஃபாலோ அப்பா வாட்ஸ்அப் குரூப் இல்ல ஏதாவது ஒரு யாஹூ குரூப் கூகுள் குரூப்ஸ் ஏதாவது பண்ற மாதிரி இருந்தது அப்படின்னா நிறைய பேருக்கு இன்னைக்கு கிடைச்ச மோட்டிவேஷன் வந்து அப்படியே கீப் அப் பண்ணுவாங்க.
இமெயில்ல பண்ணுவோம் கண்டிப்பா. we'll think about it and definitely we'll do something about it. Sure, 100%.
இன்னைக்கு கிடைச்ச அந்த மோட்டிவேஷனை வந்து கொஞ்சமாவது கேர் அப் பண்ணி அடுத்த ஸ்டேஜுக்கு எடுத்துட்டு போகலாம். அந்த மாதிரி ஒரு சப்போர்ட் குரூப் இருந்ததுன்னா இன்னும் நல்லா இருக்கும்.
Sure, sure.
When if we have also if there's any way a continued session
study group or something will be great.
Sure. Sure.
Yeah, I was just mentioning Jyoti's he was I think he had a lot more to cover, so if there's any possibility to have a continued session to cover what he was planning to, then that'll be really grateful.
Sure, we will do that, Palani. So Meena, I think there was a certification or something, correct?
That has been communicated to all the Tamil Mandram leaders.
Okay.
They would have communicated to the registrant. Okay. So whoever joined today, Senator has gratefully accepted to the participation certificate. So the completion certificate would come to you through your Tamil Sangam leaders, whoever is outside Bay Area Tamil Mandram, and then Bay Area Tamil Mandram registrants would also get from us. So give us some time because we are working. It's been like we did not expect 360 registrations, and we are like looking into how many registrations there, how many people joined in the certification course, and then so give us some time. We will work on it and then definitely pass it on to you. We will not miss this out. We'll definitely 100% give all the certificates to the registrants.
Sure. All right. Thank you very much.
And yes, we have a few more thank you note because it's a great session. And yeah, Indu.
Yeah, sure. First of all, we really want to thank Senator Bob for joining with us with us for this wonderful AA program. We want to really thank Abu Khan here for following up with Senator Bob to be our special guest for this program. And also we really want to thank all the guest speakers, Shalini, Karen, Lakshmi, and Faye, and Anupriya, and Preeti. And our heartfelt and sincere thanks to Mr. Jyoti Periyaswamy for this wonderful interactive session. Also, we really want to thank all the volunteers who have helped us to coordinate this program. Ramesh Kupaswamy, Satish, Subhashni, Shivagami, Shruti, and Sankar Nadarajan, and all the Tamil Sangams partnering with us for this wonderful program. Last but not least, we really want to thank all the participants for your enthusiastic participation and make this event a grand success. Actually, we got 360 plus registration for this program. We're really happy for that, and hope these sessions are really helpful for you to excel in your career path. We really want to thank again on behalf of San Francisco Bay Area Tamil Mandram. Thanks to everyone. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jo. Thank you, Indu. But இந்த நோட்டை தமிழ் மன்றத்துல இருந்து ஆரம்பிச்சு தமிழ்லயே முடிக்கணும் அப்படிங்கறது ஒரு ஆசை இருக்கு எனக்கு. ஸோ அதனால பெண்களுக்கு இந்த துறையில விழிப்புணர்வு ஏற்படுத்துறதுக்கும் இந்த துறையில ஈடுபட்டு சாதனை மகளிர்களா வர அனைவராலும் முடியும்ன்ற நம்பிக்கையை கொடுக்கறதுக்காக தான் இந்த துறையில சாதனை புரிஞ்ச பல மகளிர்களை வந்து நம்ம கொண்டு வந்திருக்கோம். ஸ்பீக்கர்ஸா நீங்க பாத்தீங்கன்னா ஆல் லேடிஸ் we were like looking for like this is possible. லேடிஸ் கிட்டையும் அவ்வளோ வந்து அழகா பெர்ஃபார்ம் பண்றாங்க. அதையும் பார்த்து அது இன்ஸ்பயர் ஆன. பட் ஒரு செஷன் ஸ்பீக்கர்ஸ் பேசும் போதும் we could see that through the comments, and then நாங்க எங்களுக்கு வாட்ஸ்அப் மெசேஜஸ்லயோ பிரைவேட் மெசேஜஸ்லயோ வரத வச்சு எங்களால we could feel it how well you are taking it. எல்லாருமே வந்து அவ்வளோ இன்ஸ்பயர்டா டயர்டே ஆகாம எவ்வளோ ஆக்சுவலி நாங்க ஒரு வாட்டர் பிரேக் ரெஸ்ட் ரூம் பிரேக் கூட கொடுக்கல. நடுவில் ரொம்ப இன்டு இட் போயிட்டோம். இன்னைக்கு மத்தியான செஷன் it became very long, but still everyone was like very happy and asking so many questions, and the involvement வந்து that is the success. இதுதான் எங்களோட மோட்டிவா இருந்தது. So definitely this is a ஹியூஜ் ஹிட் அப்படின்னு தான் சொல்லணும். ஸோ லேடிஸையே கொண்டு வரணும்னு நினைச்சு நிறைய வந்து ஹெல்ப் பண்ணி லேட் நைட் நான் வந்து தொந்தரவு பண்ணேன்னு சொன்னாங்க சிவகாமி. பட் அவங்க அப்ப லேட் நைட் உட்காந்து ஸ்பீக்கர்ஸ் கூட பேசிட்டு இருந்தாங்கன்னு அர்த்தம். ஸோ அது வந்து அவங்க சொல்லவே இல்லை. ஸோ she did a very great job. ஒரு ஸ்பீக்கருக்கும் உள்ள உட்காந்து படிச்சு அவங்களுக்கு என்ன மாதிரியான டாபிக் கொடுத்தா அதை இன்ட்ரெஸ்ட் பண்ணி ஸ்பீக்கர்ஸ்குள்ள இருந்து எடுத்துட்டு வர முடியும்னு எல்லாரையுமே அழகா சேனலைஸ் பண்ணிருக்கீங்க சிவகாமி. தேங்க்யூ வெரி மச். அதே மாதிரி சதீஷ், சுபாஷினி, ரமேஷ் குப்புசாமி லேட் நைட் 2 o'clock 11 o'clock மெசேஜ் போடுவாரு. அவருக்கு எப்போ ஜோதி கிட்ட இருந்து கிடைக்குதோ மெசேஜ் உடனே எங்களுக்கு அதை ஃபார்வர்ட் பண்ணிட்டு இருப்பாரு. ஸோ வி ஷுட் ரியலி தேங்க் ரமேஷ் ஆஸ் வெல். அவரு வந்து லேட் நைட் பண்றாருன்னா அகெயின் பேக் ஜோதியும் லேட் நைட் ஒர்க் பண்ணிருக்காங்கன்னு அர்த்தம். ஸோ இந்த பேக்ரவுண்ட்ல எல்லாருமே லேட் நைட் அவ்வளோ வந்து பேக்ரவுண்ட் நல்ல இந்த செஷன் நல்லா வரணும்னு ஒர்க் பண்ணிருக்காங்க. ஸோ இதுதான் எங்களோடது. இந்த செஷன் 2 டே செஷன்லேருந்து இதுல இன்ஸ்பயர் ஆகி இதுலேருந்து ஒரு 4-5 இயர்ஸ்ல இந்த நிகழ்ச்சியிலேயே தமிழ் மன்றம் நடத்துற நிகழ்ச்சியில இங்கே பார்ட்டிசிபென்ட் பண்ண ஒருத்தங்க ஸ்பெஷல் ஸ்பீக்கரா வந்தீங்கன்னா அதுதான் தமிழ் மன்றமோட இந்த செஷனோட சக்சஸா இருக்கும் அப்படின்னு நாங்க நிஜமா நம்புறோம். அது நடக்கும்னு பிலீவ் பண்றோம் 100%. So all the best to all the ladies out here and gents. அதுல வந்து மென்னும் ஜாயின் பண்ணிருக்காங்க. ஸோ we wanted everyone. ஸோ அது மாதிரி இதுல வந்து ஜெண்டர் பயஸ்க்கு எதுவுமே கிடையாது. we just wanted to prove that லேடிஸ்க்கு இதுல நிறைய சாதனை புரியறதுக்கு நிறைய வாய்ப்புகள் இருக்கு ஓப்பன் அப் பண்றதுக்குன்னு. அண்ட் ஜோதி டிட் அ கிரேட் ஜாப். அவ்வளோ கொஸ்டின் டயர்டே ஆகாம ஆன்சர் பண்ணிருக்காங்க. தேங்க்யூ ஜோதி அண்ட் தேங்க்யூ எவ்ரி ஒன். சான் பிரான்சிஸ்கோ வளைகுடா பகுதி தமிழ் மன்றம் சார்பாக அனைவருக்கும் வணக்கம், நன்றி.
மீனா, இதுல வந்து நீங்க சான் பிரான்சிஸ்கோவோட சேர்ந்து மத்த தமிழ் சங்கம், நாலாம் மிஷிகன் தமிழ் சங்கம், எனக்குலாம் இந்த மாதிரி ஒரு ப்ரோக்ராம் போயிருக்கதே தெரிஞ்சிருக்காது. அது மீன் ஹார்ட்ஃபெல்ட் தேங்க்ஸ் டு இன்க்ளூடிங் எவ்ரி ஒன் எல்ஸ். இனிமே இந்த மாதிரி ப்ரோக்ராம் பண்ணாலும் இன்க்ளூட் பண்ணுங்க. நாங்களும் ஏதாவது கான்ட்ரிபியூட் பண்ண முடியும்னா சொல்லுங்க, கண்டிப்பா பண்றோம். அண்ட் ஜோதி, தேங்க்ஸ் அகைன் ஒன் மோர் டைம்.
Sure ma'am.
And saying thank you so much for saying that. We would like to thank Charlotte Tamil Sangam, Tamil Mandram, Sacramento Tamil Mandram, Michigan Tamil Sangam, New Jersey Tamil Sangam, Greater Atlanta Tamil Sangam, Metroplex Tamil Sangam, Tamil Mandram of Greater Washington, Tamil Makkal Mandram, Minnesota Tamil Sangam and ByteQuest. ஏன்னா இவங்க எல்லாமே ஒரே வார்த்தையில they were like ஆக்சுவலி நாங்க எங்களோட பே ஏரியாக்குள்ள முடிச்சுக்கலாம் நினைக்கும் போது எங்களுக்கும் இதுல இன்ட்ரெஸ்ட் இருக்கு, இட்ஸ் லைக் அமேசிங் இவெண்ட், நாங்களும் பார்ட்டிசிபேட் பண்றோம்னு சொல்லிட்டு வந்தீங்க. அதே மாதிரி எல்லாரோட பார்ட்டிசிபேஷன்ஸும் அந்த ரெஜிஸ்ட்ரேஷன்ஸும் ஒன் டேலாம் 60 ரெஜிஸ்ட்ரேஷன் எடுத்திருக்காங்க, லாஸ்ட் டே எல்லாம் எடுத்திருக்காங்க. ஸோ அந்த மாதிரி பார்ட்டிசிபேஷன் வாஸ் ஹியூஜ். தமிழ் மன்றங்களும் சங்கங்களும் இல்லைன்னா இது வந்து பாசிபிள் கிடையாது. ஸோ அவங்களுக்குமே நிறைய நன்றி. Okay.
Thank you, Meena. This Maitreyi from Michigan Tamil Sangam. I'm the marketing coordinator for Michigan Tamil Sangam. So on behalf of all the participants from Michigan Tamil Sangam, a big thanks and a big shout out to everybody, and a special mention to Mr. Jyoti and all the panelists for a very, very insightful topic and such a detailed walkthrough about this thing. Really appreciate all your efforts, and we look forward to such active collaborations future la across the country. இந்த மாதிரி ஒரு நல்ல workshop பண்றதுக்கு ரொம்பவே special thanks to everyone involved. Thank you.
Sure. Thank you ma'am.
Yeah, Padma, நீங்க ரெண்டு வார்த்தை பேச சொல்லுங்க.
Thank you. என் பேர் பத்மா, and Bay Area Tamil Mandram, I mean in the program வந்து really amazing. I hope, like you said, 5 years down the lane, we should see a lot of women into this. Will be very inspiring, definitely. Mr. Jyoti, you were amazing. You're the star of the show. I'm like, நேத்தில இருந்து மண்டலம் அப்படியே காஞ்சிட்டு இருக்கு. ஐயோ என்ன பண்ண போறோம் லைஃப்ல வச்சுக்கிட்டுன்னு. It's just the start, right? Somewhere we have to start. So thanks so much for your time. And Meena, நீங்க வந்து I'm very happy that நீங்க other சங்கம்க்கு வந்து reach out பண்ணி ஒரு collaboration பண்ணனால we could get people from Atlanta also to join. Keep doing this work, and all the best to your team and to everyone who's joined today and yesterday. Thank you.
So the intent of this program, actually, it is not just like, do it today and then just left it as it is. Correct? It's a platform. It's a platform for every one of us. Every one of us, whether you want it, you don't want it, it's going to happen. It is going to happen. Correct? if it happens, we should be in a position to accept this. As I was telling the cell phone, look at 10 years back, how many phones we had. Look at now, each one of us have 2 phones, 3 phones, 4 phones. We can afford to buy such phones. Why? That's how market is going to be. And that same thing is going to happen. Look at Facebook. 10 years before, we had no concept of Facebook. Now, 2 times in a day, we go to Facebook. It's a behavioral change. It's a cultural change. It's an attitude change. That is the level it's going to impact. Okay. So we have to understand this really better. And we should see how do we not making money, be successful, whether it's from career perspective or from an entrepreneurial or whatever the case may be. I want to be a speaker. I want to be a writer. I want to be a thought leader. So there's so much opportunity out there. So my focus was bring everything out. Let's just leave it there. Let them figure this out. Let them find a way, their own way to spin this around. Okay. So that was my motive. And I believe they got that sense. Okay. So everyone got that sense. So now we have to find a way to continue to evolve this space. Okay, thank you.
I totally agree to that because like you said, I was talking to my friend about the program and I was like 20, 25 years back, who knew that computer is going to be, everyone's going to have a personal laptop and iPad and everything, but it did happen. Now everyone has like 2 to 3 gadgets in their hand. Sure. So eventually down the lane, AI is going to be everywhere.
For sure, for sure.
So there's it's time to push our kids into that field.
For sure.
இந்த COVID-19னால ஸ்கூல்ல பசங்களுக்கு ஃப்ரீயா வேற கொடுத்துட்டாங்க இப்ப வீட்ல இருந்து படிக்கணும்னு.
கண்டிப்பாங்க.
மூர்த்தி நீங்க 2 வார்த்தை சொல்லுங்க.
கண்டிப்பாங்க. மிக்க மகிழ்ச்சிங்க. இந்த மாதிரி ஒரு அருமையான ஒரு நிகழ்வு வந்து நடத்துறதுல வந்து யாராலையும் வந்து கடந்து போக முடியாது. அவ்வளவு எளிமையாவோ இது நம்மளுக்கு தேவையில்லாதது அப்படின்றது தமிழ் சங்கமா வந்து நம்ம கடந்து போயிருக்க முடியாது. ஆனா இது வந்து சொன்னது போல வந்து எல்லா பேரும் சொல்லியிருக்கீங்க. டெக்னாலஜின்றது எல்லா விதத்துலையும் இருக்கணும். ஒரு இந்த துறையில மட்டும்தான் இருக்கு அப்படின்றது மட்டும் இல்லாம தமிழ் சங்கம் நம்மளாலையும் நம்மளோட தமிழ் மக்களும் வந்து இதுல வந்து சிறந்து விளங்குறது வந்து பெருமைக்குரிய விஷயமா இருக்கு. அது போக பாத்தீங்கன்னா எங்களுக்கு வந்து தெரிய வந்தது 2 நாட்களுக்கு முன்னாடி தான் நம்மளோட தமிழ்ச்சங்கத்திலையும் வந்து உறுப்பினர்கள் வந்து பங்கு பெறுவாங்க அப்படின்ற ஒரு இதை எடுத்துட்டு போகணும் அப்படின்னோடனே உடனே ஒரே நாளில் பார்த்தீங்கன்னா 30க்கும் அதிகமான ரிஜிஸ்ட்ரேஷன் வந்து வந்தது. நாங்கள் உடனே இது இணைஞ்சு பண்ணுவோம் அப்படின்ட்டு மீனாட்ட கேட்டோம். மீனா அழைச்சி பேசும்போது அவங்க அதுக்கான எல்லா முன்னெடுப்புகளும் உடனே எடுத்து பண்ணாங்க. இந்த 2 நாள் செஷனில் நான் எனக்கும் வேலைகள் இருந்தது. நானும் வந்து சில நிமிடங்கள் நானும் பார்த்து தெரிஞ்சுக்கிட்டேன். ஜோதி அவங்க வந்து அவ்வளவு அருமையா வந்து பொறுமையா வந்து கேட்குற கேள்வி ஒன்று கூட மிஸ் பண்ணல. ஒரு அந்த இதெல்லாம் நான் வந்து பார்த்துட்டு எப்படி ஒரு அந்த ஒரு ஃப்ளோவில் போயிட்டு இருக்கும்போது சிலது மியூட் பண்ண சொல்றதா இருக்கட்டும், இருந்தாலும் அவர் அந்த இதில் வந்து எந்த ஒரு தடங்களும் இல்லாமல் அடுத்தடுத்து போயிட்டே இருக்கிறது. இட்ஸ் அமேசிங் ஜாப். அப்புறம் ஆன்சர் பண்ணுறது எங்கள் மக்கள் வந்து மினசோட்டா தமிழ்ச்சங்கம் சார்ந்தும் நிறைய பேர் பங்கு பெற்றாங்க. அவங்களும் கேள்வி கேட்டாங்க. அவ்வளோ அருமையாக வந்து அதுக்கான பதில் அளித்ததும் வந்து இட்ஸ் எக்ஸலண்ட் ஒன். அது வந்து மறுக்கவே முடியாது. அதே போல் கடைசி நான் அவர் சொல்கிறதையும் கேட்டேன். நான் நிறைய கேள்விகள் இந்த தான் அதிகமாக வந்திருக்கு. நிறையா டாபிக்ஸ் கவர் பண்ண வேண்டியது கவர் பண்ண முடியாமல் போயிருக்கு அப்படின்றதையும் சொல்லியிருந்தாங்க. முடிஞ்சா ஏதாவது அடுத்த ஒரு செஷன் இருந்ததுன்னா கண்டிப்பாக நாங்கள் வந்து இணைந்து ஜோதி மட்டும் இல்லை, எல்லா பேரும் யாரெல்லாம் நிறைய பேர் இதில் பேனலிஸ்டில் இருந்திருக்கீங்க. நிறைய பேர் நிறைய டாபிக்ஸ் எடுத்து பேசியிருக்கீங்க. அந்த அந்த விதத்தில் எதெல்லாம் கவர் ஆகலையோ கண்டிப்பாக எடுத்துகிட்டு இன்னொரு ப்ரோக்ராம்லையும் வந்து கொடுங்க. நாங்களும் இணைந்து உங்களோட இந்த நிகழ்வில் கலந்துக்கிறதுல பெருமையாக இருக்கும். முன்பே சொன்னது போல் வந்து பெண்களுக்கு இயற்கை அறிவாற்றலோட செயற்கை அறிவாற்றல், அதாவது ஆர்டிஃபிஷியல் இன்டெலிஜென்ட், அந்த இதுலேயும் வந்து சிறந்து விளங்கணும் அப்படின்றதுல எந்த ஒரு மாற்று கருத்து இல்லை. அதான் சொன்னது போல இயற்கை அறிவாற்றலும் இருக்கு. ஸோ அதையும் தெரிவிச்சுக்கிறேன். கண்டிப்பா நம்ம மேலும் இது போன்ற நிகழ்வுகளை நடத்துறதுக்கு ஜோதி நீங்க வந்து எங்களுக்கு நம்மளோட மிகப்பெரிய சொத்தா நான் நினைக்கிறேன். நம்மளோட தமிழ் சார்ந்த ஒருத்தர் வந்து இவ்வளவு பெரிய இது முன்னெடுத்து பண்றாரு. நிறைய ஆர்டிக்கிள், நிறைய வந்து புக்கு எல்லாம் எழுதுறீங்க அப்படின்றது இந்த நிகழ்வுக்கு அப்புறம் தான் நானே தெரிஞ்சுக்கிட்டேன். எக்ஸலன்ட் ஜாப். நீங்க வந்து மேலும் வளரணும். மினசோட்டாக்கு வந்தீங்கன்னா கண்டிப்பா வாங்க.
கண்டிப்பாங்க.
மினசோட்டால 10,000 லேக்ஸ் பிளேஸ் கண்டிப்பா நாங்க வந்து நல்லா பாத்துக்குவோம். நல்ல மக்கள் இங்க இருக்கிறவங்களும் இங்கேயும் வாங்க. கண்டிப்பா நம்ம வந்து சேர்ந்து பயணிப்போம். ரொம்ப நன்றிங்க.
ரொம்ப நன்றிங்க.
நன்றி.
நான் ஒண்ணு சொல்லிக்க விரும்புறேன். நெக்ஸ்ட் செஷன் தயவு செய்து கண்டக்ட் பண்ணுங்க. அதுல நாங்க யாரும் கேள்வியே கேட்க மாட்டோம். நீங்க மட்டும் ஃபுல்லா பேசிடுங்க, நாங்க லிசன் பண்றோம்.
இல்லைங்க, அது தேவைங்க. ஆக்சுவலா கேள்வி கேட்கல, நான் ஆன்சர் பண்ணல அப்படின்னாக்கா என்ன ஆகுனா உங்களால ஃபாலோ பண்ண முடியாது.
இன்டராக்ட் பண்ணாம இருப்போம்.
ஆமா, அதாவது நீங்க ஒரு கேள்வி கேட்டு நான் அதுக்கு ஆன்சர் பண்ணி நீங்க கன்வின்ஸ் ஆகும்போது அடுத்த செஷன் வந்து உங்களுக்கு ஃபாலோ பண்ண முடியும். அப்படி இல்ல நீங்க மைண்ட்ல அது வந்து பிளாக் ஆயிடுச்சு வச்சுக்கோங்களேன், அந்த செஷன் ஃப்ளோ வந்து உங்களுக்கு கரெக்டா வராது. ஏதோ நீங்க கேட்டுட்டு இருப்பீங்க, ஆனா அதனுடைய கான்செப்ஷுவல் லாஜிக்கல் வியூ வந்து உங்க மைண்ட்ல செட் ஆகாது. இப்ப நீங்க பாத்தீங்கன்னா பவர் பாயிண்ட் வந்து நான் உங்களுக்காக தான் வச்சிருக்கேன், பட் என்னோட ஸ்பீச் எல்லாமே பாத்தீங்கன்னா ஸ்பான்டேனியஸா நானா தான் பேசுறேன். அதுக்கு என்ன காரணம் அப்படின்னாக்கா, தட் சிட்ஸ் இன் மை மைண்ட். ஐ ஹாவ் தோஸ் கான்செப்ஷுவல் லாஜிக்கல் வியூ இன் மை மைண்ட். இந்த டாபிக்ல நான் என்ன பேசணும், இதுல எப்படி வந்து நான் உங்களை வந்து உங்களுடைய லெவலுக்கு நான் இறங்கி பேசணும் அப்படிங்கிறது நான் என்னைக்குள்ளேயே நான் வந்து மாத்திக்கிறேன். ஏன்னா நான் கிட்ஸுக்கு டீச் பண்ணும்போது இந்த அளவுக்கு இன்டெப்தா உள்ளார போகல, அது வந்து அவங்களுக்கு தகுந்த மாதிரி தான் நான் பண்ணிட்டு இருந்தேன். பட் உங்களுக்கு வரும்போது வந்துட்டு உங்களோட அப்ஜெக்டிவ் வேற, கிட்ஸோட அப்ஜெக்டிவ் வேற. உங்களோட அப்ஜெக்டிவ் வந்துட்டு ஒண்ணு என்னோட கேரியர் நான் அட்வான்ஸ் பண்ணணும், அப்படி இல்லைன்னா எனக்கு ஒரு புது எம்ப்ளாய்மெண்ட் வேணும், அப்படி இல்லைன்னா நான் வந்து என்னோட ஒரு பிசினஸ் சக்சஸ்ஃபுல்லா லான்ச் பண்ணணும். ஸோ இந்த மாதிரி ஒரு அப்ஜெக்டிவ்ல நம்ம டிராவல் ஆகும்போது ஒரு கொஸ்டின் உங்க மைண்ட்ல இருக்கு, அந்த கொஸ்டினுக்கு ஒரு கிளாரிட்டி இல்ல, ஆன்சர் இல்ல அப்படிங்கும்போது சப்சிக்வெண்ட் செஷன் உங்களால ஃபாலோ பண்றது கஷ்டம். இந்த மேபி வாட் வி குட் டு, வி குட் அவாய்ட் லாட் ஆஃப் திஸ் external speakers. Okay, so that may be one thing that we could have done, and it is slightly different. Okay, that's something that we could think in next time. We may have limited time with the limited speakers, so we will just focus on only learning objectives, like what is it we want to learn, and stick to that, and then we can bring speakers later. So that may be an option to consider.
That's a good idea. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, ஒரு நிமிஷங்க. தயா பே ஏரியா தமிழ் மன்றத்தோட பிரசிடென்ட் 2018 பேசுறேன். So it was a great session, Jyoti. Back again after 1 year, we were coming back with the kids program and now women's program. This women team is wonderful. They were able to bring this program, and they did an excellent job in roping in all the industrial experts. We are very happy to see that the betterment is in good hands with the women, and they are doing a very wonderful job. And I would like to thank Ramesh Ramesh Kupusamy to be in touch with you, and then he brought this huge effort. It started as a kids event and then now materialized into an international event. I would say it's an international event. In 2018, in 2018, when I was a president, I was not able to spend time and listen to your speech. Today, the whole day I spend quality time with you. So I would be very happy and thankful for that. And I would like to thank all the fellow Tamil Changam leaders for taking part in San Francisco Bay Area Tamil Mandram event. It's a proud moment for us. Thank you.
Thank you, Daya. Actually, Daya சொன்ன மாதிரி ரமேஷ் குப்புசாமியை தான் இப்ப நான் வலவீசி இப்போ
நானும் தேடிட்டே இருந்தேன்.
And one interesting thing to know is that this Jyoti was introduced by Bona Ramesh. It's a woman.
Yes. Yeah. So
woman brings difference.
Yeah. So this is
ரமேஷ் பத்தி சொல்லணும். ரமேஷ் பத்தி சொல்லியாகணும். அவர் வந்து ஒரு ஆக்சுவலி இப்போ அவர் இங்க இல்ல, வீட்டுல இல்ல, அவர் வந்து வெளியில ஒரு அவுட் ஆஃப் ஸ்டேஷன், நாட் லைக் ஒரு கொஞ்சம் அவையவா இருக்கிறாரு. ஸோ ஃபேமிலி டைம் ஸ்பெண்ட் பண்ற அந்த டைம்லயும் இங்க வந்து எங்களுக்கு எல்லாத்தையும் ஒர்க் பண்ண, நேத்து ஃபுல்லாவே ஆன்லைன்ல இருந்தாரு. நல்லா என்ன பாவம் ஃபேமிலி வந்து கொஞ்சம் டென்ஷனா தான் இருந்திருப்பாங்க. பட் அது எதுக்குன்னா தட் இஸ் இஸ் டெடிகேஷன். ஸோ தேங்க்யூ ரமேஷ். நீங்க வந்து ட்ரிப்ல இருக்கிறீங்க, பட் ஸ்டில் யூ ரியலி புல் த்ரூ. நான் வந்து கொஞ்சம் டென்ஷன் ஆனேன், ஐயோ நீங்க வெளியில போறீங்களா, அப்போ நான் என்ன பண்ணுவேன் அப்படின்னு சொல்லிட்டு. ஏன்னா நேத்து அவருக்கு எனக்கே சொன்னார், நான் டென்ஷன் ஆயிடுவேன்னு சொல்லல அவரு. நான் அப்ப சொன்னேன், டோன்ட் வரி, நான் வந்து ஐ வில் கிவ் யூ ஃபுல் சப்போர்ட், ஆன்லைன் தானே, நான் உங்களுக்கு சப்போர்ட். அதே மாதிரி அவர் சொன்னதுக்கு he fully support.
Yeah, he is on the call. கால்ல இருக்காரு. ஜோதி, you know Bona Ramesh.
ஆமாங்க. ஆக்சுவலா சோ எனக்கு வந்து எப்படி போனா தெரிய வரும் அப்படின்னாக்கா, நான் வந்து MIT-ல டீச் பண்ணிட்டு இருந்தேன். ஓகே, நான் MIT-ல வந்துட்டு ஆர்டிஃபிஷியல் இன்டெலிஜென்ஸ் ஃபார் பிசினஸ் அப்படிங்கிற கோர்ஸ் டீச் பண்றது. கோர்ஸ்ல ரமேஷோட ஒய்ஃப் வந்து என்னோட ஸ்டூடெண்ட். ஸோ அவங்களுக்கு வந்து நான் ஒர்க் பண்ணிட்டு இருக்கும்போது, கோர்ஸ் ஒர்க் பண்ணிட்டு இருக்கும்போது அவங்க தான் என்ன இன்ட்ரடியூஸ் பண்ணாங்க பே ஏரியா தமிழ் மன்றம் in 2018. So since 2018, we are continuously doing this program for either for kids or for adults. In some form, we are doing this one. And I really want to thank Ramesh. He's been very instrumental, and his wife, Una, and also Ramesh Kupusamy. So it's very much, I would say, like, on a daily basis, either we talk or chat every day for the last 2-3 weeks. And because I have a daytime job, I have a full-time job, correct? This is not just the only thing I do. So I have to come back and work whatever he's asking for. Add this one, adjust this one, correct this one, correct the agenda and brochure and flyer and everything. So it's been a lot of tremendous effort from Ramesh's side. I want to thank and appreciate Mr. Ramesh for putting all the things. So you could speak, but making it happen is not easy, correct? You have to show in action, correct? So he's shown it in action, he made it happen. And thanks to Ramesh. Thank you, Ramesh.
Ramesh
Kupusamy.
is a panelist now. Ramesh, could you speak few words, please?
Yeah, sure. Just want to thank Bay Area Tamil Mandram. So in the program எப்படி ஸ்டார்ட் ஆச்சுன்னா இந்த வருஷம் வந்து நம்ம எல்லாம் கோவிட்ல இருந்ததுனால ஸோ ஐ வாஸ் ட்ரைங் டு லுக் சம் ஏஐ செக்ஷன் ஃபார் மை சன். அப்புறம் தான் எனக்கு மிஸ்டர் ஜோதியோட ஞாபகம் வந்தது 2018 பண்ணுமே. ஸோ அது மாதிரி ஒரு நல்ல செஷன் இருக்கணும் அப்படின்ட்டு. ஸோ அதுக்கப்புறம் வந்து அவருக்கு ரீச் அவுட் பண்ணேன். ஸோ வாட் கேன் வி டூ ஃபார் அ ஸ்டூடெண்ட் வி ஸ்டார்டட். இட் வாஸ் அ வெரி குட் எஃபர்ட் அண்ட் அது நல்லா போச்சு. அப்போ அவரே சொன்னாரு நம்ம ஒரு விமென்ஸ்க்கு பண்ணலாமே அப்படின்ட்டு சொல்லிட்டு இருந்தாரு. கண்டிப்பா ஏன்னா இந்த வருஷம் வேற தமிழ் மன்றம் பார்த்தா மெஜாரிட்டிஸ் விமென் ஈஸியில. ஸோ ஐ தாட் இட் வாஸ் அ வெரி குட் ஆப்பர்ச்சுனிட்டி அண்ட் ஐ டாக் டு ஆல் த ஈஸி இந்த பேட்டம். ஸோ அண்ட் எவ்ரி ஒன் வாஸ் ஸோ லைக் ப்ளீஸ் டு ஓகே இந்த ஒரு செஷன் நம்ம பண்ணுவோம் அப்படின்ட்டு வி ஜஸ்ட் தாட் அண்ட் ஐ ஜஸ்ட் கன்வே த சேம் டு மிஸ்டர் ஜோதி. ஸோ இனிஷியலாக வந்து நம்ம எப்படி பண்ணலாம் அப்படின்னு பண்ணிட்டு பேரிய தமிழ் மன்றத்தில் இங்கே பேரியில் மக்களுக்கு மட்டும் இந்த இதை பண்ணோம். அதுக்கப்புறம் வி தாட் ஓகே இந்த ஜூம் காலு எல்லாம் பண்ணதுனால ஸோ வி டாக் டு மீனா அண்ட் மீனா said okay we'll reach out to other who are interested Tamil Mandram to bring in so that we just as Jyoti said knowledge is wealth. ஸோ இந்த நாலேஜை வந்து எல்லாருக்கும் ஷேர் பண்ணுவோம். ஸோ வி ஆஸ் தமிழ் மன்றம் மூலிமா வில் ஜஸ்ட் கோ அக்ராஸ் த யூஎஸ் ஆர் அக்ராஸ் த வேர்ல்ட். ஸோ இட் ஹேப்பன்ட் வெரி வெல் அண்ட் ஐ வாண்ட் டு தேங்க் மிஸ்டர் ஜோதி. இ புட் லாட் ஆஃப் எஃபர்ட் ஆன் திஸ். அவர் எதுனாலையும் நம்ம எந்த டைம்ல கேட்டாலும் இமீடியட்டா அவர் ஒரு எவ்வளவு ஒர்க் இருந்தாலும் இல் அட்ரஸ் ஓகே இது பண்ணலாம் அது பண்ணலாம். அவருடைய ப்ரௌசர் டே 1 டே 2 ப்ரொஃபஷனல் ஸ்டைலு பார்த்தீங்களாவே தெரியும். இது ஒரு ஃப்ரீ ஈவெண்ட்னே இருக்காது. இந்த ஈவெண்ட்ல நான் நிறைய பேருக்கு சொல்லுவேன் இது வந்து வி ஷுட் சார்ஜ் அட்லீஸ்ட் மினிமம் சம் டாலர்ஸ் அப்படின்னு கூட சொல்லியிருக்கேன். பட் இருந்தாலும் நம்ம as a community we want to do something and we want to like இது 2 நாள் வந்து நம்ம கிட்ட மிஸ்டர் ஜோதி ஸ்பெண்ட் பண்றது அவருடைய டைம் வேல்யூபிள் டைம் வந்து இட்ஸ் வெரி குட். ஸோ இதுக்கு நமக்காக ஸ்பெண்ட் மட்டும் இல்லை அது மெட்டீரியல் ப்ரிப்பேர் பண்ணி எந்த மாதிரி ஆடியன்ஸ் இருக்கு எல்லா ஆடியன்ஸ்க்கும் நமக்கு வந்து ரீச் அவுட் பண்ற மாதிரி இது பண்ணோம் அப்படின்ட்டு யூ புட் லாட் ஆஃப் எஃபர்ட். அதுக்கப்புறம் அவர் நிறைய இந்த இதெல்லாம் அக்ராஸ் த குளோப் வந்து இவர் நிறைய ப்ராஜெக்ட்ஸ் இது மாதிரி பண்ணிட்டு இருக்காரு. ஸோ அதையும் ஒன்று ஷேர் பண்ணார் இதெல்லாம் பண்ணேன் அப்படின்னு. ஸோ ஐ வாஸ் ஸோ இம்ப்ரெஸ்ட் அண்ட் ஆல்சோ ஐ வாஸ் டாக்கிங் டு மீனா அண்ட் மீனா ஆல்சோ ஓகே நம்ம வந்து இது பெரிய லெவலில் எடுத்துட்டு போனோம். ஸோ இட் ரீச் அவுட் வெரி வெல். ஸோ ஐ எம் ஸோ ஹாப்பி. Everyone who I just want to thank all the speakers. They gave their best to share the knowledge as well as our Tamil Mandram is spread the world all over the US nowadays. இந்த ஈவெண்ட் வந்து ஒரு லெவலுக்கு எடுத்துட்டு போயிடுச்சு. யாராவது சொன்னாங்க ஒன் ஆஃப் த ஸ்பீக்கர் தமிழ் மன்றம் வந்து இப்போ ஒரு நல்ல லெவல், அதாவது ஒரு ரெகுலர் ஈவெண்ட் பண்றது, கோவிட் ஹெல்ப் பண்றாங்க, மற்ற கிட்ஸுக்கு ஹெல்ப் பண்ணாலையும் ஒரு விமென்ஸுக்கு பண்றது, அதாவது இந்த 2020 இருக்கிற விமென்ஸ் டீம் வந்து இது எடுத்துட்டு போனது ஐ வாஸ் ஸோ ஹாப்பி. So I'm also proud to say it's a very good event and entrepreneurs for all the participants. ரெண்டாவது பார்ட்டிசிபென்ட் வந்து டயர்டே ஆகாத எல்லா பிரேக்ல இருந்து அவங்களுடைய கொஸ்டின்ஸ் எல்லாம் கேட்டு they want to get maximum out of it. ஸோ அதனால ஒன்னே நம்ம அவளோட மிஸ்டர் ஜோதியோட ஸ்பீச் கொஞ்சம் கம்மியாச்சு. பட் இட்ஸ் ஓகே. we'll see if there any opportunity to have another session. We'll see out. We'll see everything is work out. We'll do it. We'll continue to work with everyone. But it was a very good and I was so honored and thank you Mr. Jyoti and thank you Bay Area Tamil Mandram.
Thank you Mr. Ramesh.
நன்றி ரமேஷ். ரமேஷ், நான் தான் சொன்னேன் இது ஒரு பிரம்மாண்டமான விழான்னு. ஏன்னா தோரணம் கட்டினாதான் பிரம்மாண்ட விழா கிடையாது. இந்த பேண்டமிக் சிச்சுவேஷன்ல மக்களுக்கு நாலேஜ் இஸ் பவர், ஸ்ட்ரென்த் அப்படிங்கிற மாதிரி இது ரொம்ப முக்கியம். இன்னைக்கு கூட நான் காலையில இல்ல, ஏன்னா ஜோதி திரும்ப சொல்றாங்க நாலேஜ் இஸ் பவர், ஸ்ட்ரென்த். அதனால நான் தமிழ் சொல்லி கொடுக்க போயிட்டேன். எனக்கு தெரிஞ்ச போய் சொல்லி கொடுக்கலாம் அப்படின்னு. ரொம்ப நன்றி. ரொம்ப அதாவது பிராக்டிக்கல் லைஃபோட நீங்க வந்து கனெக்ட் பண்ணி சொல்லி கொடுத்தது ரொம்ப நல்லா இருந்தது. ரொம்ப
கண்டிப்பாங்க.
நைட் பண்ணிட்டு இருக்காங்க ஜோதி. இந்தியால இருந்து நிறைய பேர் ஜாயின் பண்ணிருக்காங்க. இந்த 2 நாள் வந்து they have totally அது அவங்களுக்கு ஃபுல் நைட் அது இன்னைக்கு ஃபுல் டே பண்ண செஷன்னா. ஸோ ஐ தேங்க் எவ்ரி ஒன். அதை ஸ்டார்டிங் செஷன் போது சில பேர்கிட்ட கனெக்ட் பண்ணி அது அவங்க கனெக்டடா இருக்கும் போது நீங்க எந்த ஏரியான்னு கேட்டிருந்தேன். சும்மா ஏதோ யுனைடெட் ஸ்டேட்ஸ்குள்ள யாரோ அப்படின்ற மாதிரி. பட் அவங்க சொன்னாங்க இந்தியால இருந்து ஜாயின் பண்ணிருக்கேன் அப்படின்னு. சோ ஷார்ட் ஆக்சுவலி அண்ட் சர்ப்ரைஸ் ஆக்சுவலா. அது அந்த மாதிரி இந்தியால இருந்து ஜாயின் பண்ண எல்லாருக்குமே குட் நைட் சொல்றதா குட் மார்னிங் சொல்றதான்னு தெரியல. சோ போய் ரிலாக்ஸ் பண்ணுங்க. தேங்க்யூ சோ மச்.
Thank you.
Thanks again, Mr. Jyoti and everyone.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, madam.
போய் கொஞ்சம் ரெஸ்ட் எடுத்துக்கோங்க ஜோதி.
கண்டிப்பாங்க. Thank you so much. Bye.
ரொம்ப நன்றி.
எல்லாருக்கும் நன்றிங்க.
சான் பிரான்சிஸ்கோ பே ஏரியா தமிழ் மன்றம் சார்பாக உங்க எல்லாருக்கும் நன்றியும் வணக்கத்தையும் தெரிவித்துக் கொள்கிறோம். தமிழால் இணைவோம், ஆள்போல் தலைப்போம். நன்றி, வணக்கம்.
Thank you. Thanks so much.
Okay, bye. Sure, bye.